was definitely technical difficulties. I was trying to make it where y'all could see what was going on with the election. I did not know that all of this was gonna happen. Hold on, man. So I'm sharing this right now.
Speaking of that, let's go check in with Aisha Hassi at the Trump campaign headquarters. She is in West Palm Beach.
So we should be back in business.
Let's check in with Jackie Hunter. She's at the Harris campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C.
All right, I'm back, y'all. Share. What's up, Terrence Thomas? My dog, share, man. Share. All right, we're gonna change up, man.
All right, Jackie, thank you so much. Before we make some race calls, Harold, you want to clarify something?
Let's see what else we can find.
The Florida abortion initiative that it didn't pass, though, because you had 60%. So I misspoke, but it got 58%, but fell by 2. And then, in fact, they had a marijuana initiative, which I would have voted against. So it didn't reach the number I would have given to 60. Yeah, so Governor DeSantis is talking both of those things down in Florida. Okay, we have some calls. To begin the
You could spend your time looking for the perfect.
I'm gonna try to see if I can find one live right now. All right, we're going to Fox now. Live now from Fox. We'll switch it up. We're gonna go this one.
Concept of mirages in the early minutes and hours of these races. We're seeing some of these lightly shaded battleground states right now, and I'm going to point specifically to Michigan and Pennsylvania, which have light blue, but very early results so far in those states. What's a blue mirage? What's a red mirage?
Yeah, I'm about to say, I know Texas is going to be red. Won't worry about that.
So I'll use the example of here in Arizona. Going to see a drop of ballots that came in early. Some of those election day votes, and a good chunk of those as well. So I think we really got to keep an eye on those ballots and seeing how that evolves throughout. Are we going to see more mail-ins that tend to favor Democrats, or are we going to see a situation where it kind of flips slowly over time? As these races tighten, it really boils to the different ways these people And so we'll see a different impact in different states in terms of how that plays out. But I think the key here is for people to be patient. And if you see a close margin, you see that margin flip, keep an eye on in terms of what those ballots are coming in those ballot drops.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Cameron. Almost like the object in the mirror isn't as close as it would appear, or is as close as it would appear here. So, yes, I think a lot of people are kind of just keeping their powder dry on that one, knowing that some of these results you got to take with a grain of salt right now because they come in piecemeal. But we do have our electoral college tally, if we can just bring that up here. I was told by my executive producer that in 2020, at this very same point in the night, the tally was identical to then and now, 2020 to 2024. At this point in the night, you see it there in the lower left-hand portion of your screen, 95 for Trump, 35 for Harris. It is really, really early so far. We have vantage points as well, though, inside of the Trump election night watch party there in West Palm Beach. We also have vantage points outside on the campus of Howard University in the nation's capital at the Harris Walls ticket. So wanted to get all this in. I think that was a kind of a good pausing moment. Let's take a quick commercial break, you guys. Austin Westfall, Cameron Candle joining on the back end here. We'll see everyone in 2 minutes.
Sorry about that. I had the volume up a little bit. All right, that's what it was. Sorry about that. Julianne, appreciate you for coming in. All right, so while that is coming in, while they in commercial break, we're going to talk about what I've been learning from some of the information that I've been told.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us on this historic election night here in the United States. Happy election night to all of you. Let's get into more of these storylines throughout the course of the evening. Going to be joined by my colleague here in the Live Now newsroom, Austin Westfall, and New York Post reporter Cameron Arcand with the latest here as well. Cameron, we were discussing some of these battleground states. We're getting results in from some of them here. But let's talk about the campaigns themselves, the Trump campaign specifically here. I know you have sources within the campaign. How are they feeling tonight? We have a live picture inside their election night watch party. We have some reporting as well from Fox News Digital. Who have you spoken to there tonight?
There is definitely a sense of cautious optimism from the Trump campaign when it comes to the outcome tonight. I think there is definitely still a push to make sure that these votes get counted, because keep in mind, they had a massive early voting push, and you saw that in a lot of states. This big advantage for Republicans here in Arizona for these early ballot returns. But the matter of it is they have to make sure that that slice of vote that they have on election day didn't just transfer to early voting. They need to make sure they're getting those election day people out, as well as your low propensity voters, and maybe those people who have changed their mind from 2020 and 2022 and now want to back the former president. So that's kind of what they're keeping an eye on, keeping tally on who are these voters that we maybe did not see come to the polls for Trump in prior elections.
So, Cameron, I got to ask you. Oh, and go ahead.
Yeah, so we just have some of the more reporting that Cameron was alluding to. This from Fox News Digital's Brooke Singman. She's talking to Trump campaign officials. They're telling her early signs are the night could be shaping up like we hoped, on track for a great night. They say the direction indicated by early voting is continuing, and people who voted early did not cannibalize election day voting. Based on network exit polling, Trump campaign officials saying Trump is doing better with female voters than Harris is doing with male voters. Also, they say GOP turnout in Philadelphia is high, where Trump was successful in 2016 and 2020, like South Philly and Northeast Philly. Also, they say rural turnout for Republicans is, quote unquote, through the roof. They say exit polling has a very, quote, anti-incumbent mood here. So this is to be expected, from some of these campaign officials, Austin, going into election night. They want to project confidence here. That seems like what you're getting from some of these quotes obtained by Fox News Digital on the Trump side.
That's right. And if we can, I want to bring Cameron back in because I want to ask him a little bit about his state. We've been talking all day about the 7 battleground states. I said earlier today, the easiest path to victory for Harris would be the blue wall: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, 1 in Nebraska. The easiest for Trump would be North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. That's the path of least resistance for both candidates. Notice I didn't mention your state, Cameron. How does Arizona play into this? What if the path of least resistance is not the way it plays out with these states? How does Arizona fit into the equation?
Well, Arizona fits into this equation where we backed Trump in 2016, but backed Biden in 2020. I'm going to read you a text that I got earlier today from the GOP chairwoman. She says she feels great. She says they feel like they were unified and voted early and on the big day. She told me this weekend on a phone call that they did not cannibalize those votes from election day to early voting. And how does this play a role into this? We also have in Arizona a unique situation with independent voters who make up about a third of our registered voters in the state. We're also looking at those disaffected, more moderate Republicans and seeing how they're voting. I want to point this stat out. Nikki Haley, before she dropped out of the primary, received over 100,000 votes in opposition to Donald Trump. The Harris campaign with their whole Republicans for Harris coalition, whether or not that's going to work or not, is banking on those votes. I'm in regular contact with the Harris campaign. This is part of their strategy, seeing if they can close the gap with those Haley voters in getting them to vote for Kamala Harris.
All right, Cameron Arcand there with the New York Post. Cameron, thanks so much. Have a good election night. Great reporting this cycle, as always. And in the meantime here, we do want to bring you out to some of these live events that we have at the moment here. Austin and I and Cameron were talking about Arizona specifically, major issues put to Arizona voters on the ballot, like immigration, like abortion. Same with Florida, though. We are getting some of these reactions from some of the candidates there in Florida, including, remember, that key Senate race between Republican incumbent Rick Scott and his Democratic challenger, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. We have Mucarsel-Powell. Okay, it looks like this just wrapped up here. So we're a little off on our timing at the moment there. But Debbie Mucarsel-Powell most likely conceding the race to Scott there. Let's take this here. You see that Scott was declared and projected the winner of the Florida Senate race, 56%, with Mucarsel-Powell's 43%. So this is going to happen here on Live Now all throughout the course of the evening. We're going to try to get to some of these campaign speeches, election night watch parties, but also victory speeches and concession speeches as well. In the meantime here, let's take yet another quick commercial break. Almost at the bottom of the hour. There is so much more where that came from on this election night. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are at the bottom of the hour here on this election night, 6:30 Mountain Time, 8:30 there on the East Coast, as we continue to track some of these results and bring you these live events, live, raw, and unfiltered here. We do have this as well. This is a live vantage point inside of Senator Rick Scott's election night watch party. We're expecting Scott very, very soon here to give his victory speech. We just heard from his Democratic opponent, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. She conceded the race to Rick Scott there. And this is the breakdown we have in the results according to the Associated Press right now. You can see there the race was called about an hour ago. And so Republicans breathing somewhat of a sigh of relief there in the Sunshine State. We also know Trump has been projected to be the winner of Florida as well, besting Harris. So Florida looking very, very solid for Republicans, as it has in the last cycle in 2020 as well. In the meantime here, we do have more and more experts, reporters, analysts joining us on the stream, including and especially Anna Giartelli at the Washington Examiner. She joins me, and Austin Westfall here live. Anna, good to see you here. We got a lot of live events to contend with, but let's focus our efforts on the Harris campaign right now. This is their election night watch party on the campus of Howard University. And Anna, I know you have some sources in the Harris campaign. How are they feeling tonight?
They're feeling very good. Certainly a lot of joy. I think that would fit with the campaign theme. But the Harris campaign, I was with them last night in Atlanta for a concert, parties, lot of high expectations. They're really confident that this is going to be their time, that their candidate has stuck on message. Certainly she has, possibly to a fault, according to Republicans, because she has, jumped on positions, gone back and forth. And really, on a number of issues, particularly immigration, which is what I cover every day, we haven't heard Harris's border plans. And so that's to Democrats' advantage at this point. They just need someone to run against Trump, pretty much stay quiet, not make problems, and defeat him. And they think that's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, and I wanted to just bring up a race call that we're getting. Speaking of Harris here, let's go to the Garden State at the moment. We bring you all these in real time, as you know. The Associated Press calling the race for Harris. She beats Donald Trump there in New Jersey. Also, Westfall, Harris winning New Jersey.
Harris winning New Jersey, and if you'll come out to me, let's show the electoral map. We are seeing more and more blue filling in. A lot of these smaller states are now dark blue. That means we're seeing finally that they're being called. No surprises there so far. We're still hearing for more results from battleground states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, preliminary results coming in from those states. But nonetheless, Andrew, that race call, not a surprise.
All right, and Anna, let's get back to some of the Harris campaign, I guess, the vibes within headquarters there on the campus of Howard University here. What does Harris need to do if she has the momentum to maintain that momentum? And what have they done in the last 4 or 5 days to shore up any support here?
Yeah, what the Harris campaign has done is it's very similar to Trump's, but they had the closing message at the Ellipse on Tuesday.
To cut you off, Anna. Sorry to cut you off here. We do have Rick Scott at his election night watch party. We'll get to that question and answer in just a moment here. Let's listen.
Well, Florida, we did it. And for once, we did it before midnight. I want to thank God. I want to thank my beautiful wife who put up with me. My wonderful daughters, Allison and Jordan.
Allison.
Hello. And Jordan. And their husbands, Pierre and Shane. And my perfect grandsons. And I want to thank my mom, who couldn't be here. So, and guess what? We won Miami-Dade. So I think we won every constitutional officer down there. We have a new sheriff, Rosie. It's unbelievable what happened. Together, this is a team event. Together, we get to celebrate a great victory tonight. There's a lot of people to thank. There's a lot of people that knocked on doors, made phone calls, did text. We had a lot of people just busted their butts in every one of these races. So we had a great campaign team led by Jackie Zeckman. We have a great office team. We've got 10 offices led by Craig Carbone. Now, let's do something fun. Keep your hands up if I ask you. Raise your hand if you worked in the governor's office. Raise your hand if you were appointed by me when I was governor, or you have a family or friend that was. How about you worked in my Senate office? Keep your hands up. Or you worked at the National Republican Senatorial Committee when I was a chair. Or you worked at the RNC in my last election. Or you volunteered or you're donated. Almost everybody is part of that. This is a team win. We won, they lost. Every person in this room has a dream. My dream is that every child, I don't care the color of their skin, their religion, where they were born, has a chance to live the dream of this country. If that's true, it's a hell of a country. And that's what we're going to do. But our work is not done. Next week, we have another election. Senate Republican leader. So 2 years ago, I challenged Mitch McConnell because I know there has to be a change. We have a great Republican Party all across this country. We need a Republican Party in D.C. We need a Republican Party to start solving the problems of this country, and we have a significant number of problems. Florida is the center of the Republican Party of this country. Washington could learn a hell of a lot from what we've done right here in this great state. We are the best melting pot in the world. Los votantes hispanos son republicanos hoy. Hoy enviamos un fuerte mensaje al mundo. Florida is roja. Y no hay lugar para el socialismo en los Estados Unidos, especialmente la Florida.
Okay, so as Senator Rick Scott there accepts victory in Spanish there in the Sunshine State, wanted to let you listen into some of his remarks there alongside his family as well. We also have the results in the lower right-hand portion of your screen coming back out here. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. So that's what we're going to do all throughout the course of the evening. It really is still early yet here. I want to bring into the conversation yet again Austin Westfall and Anna Giratelli there at the Washington Examiner. Before we do that, we do have some race calls that we want to make as well. We just brought you that New Jersey going for Vice President Kamala Harris. Remember, there's a Senate race there we're watching. Let's take this. All right, so Congressman, the Democrat Andy Kim beating Republican Curtis Bashaw there in New Jersey. And this race just called by the Associated Press with around 28% of estimated votes counted. Remember, this is Senator Bob Menendez's seat that he resigned from this summer after being found guilty of 16 felony corruption counts. And he was convicted of that. He gets sentenced on those convictions come January here. Andy Kim will replace Bob Menendez there in the Garden State for this Senate seat. Democrats keeping the seat there in New Jersey. But we also have some race calls coming in on the presidential level as well. For Vice President Kamala Harris, we brought you Delaware for her. We brought you Maryland for her. We brought you New Jersey for her. Take a look at this there in the Garden State. Harris beating Trump in New Jersey. New Jersey solidly blue, solidly Democratic. I believe, okay, also we do have a race call. Let's go to Illinois right now. 19 electoral votes there in Illinois going to Kamala Harris here. She bested Trump there, 56 to Trump's 43, with 9% of estimated votes counted there. So you see the tally in the lower left hand of your screen there. That's the Electoral College. Remember, the magic number is 270. Harris has 71 right now. Trump with 101 here, bringing Anna and Austin back in here. Austin, we'll start with you. So we got an updated Electoral College tally. Still no surprises there? That was to be expected, right?
Yeah, no surprises so far. Let's take a look at our bar. It's been filling in 71, as you mentioned, to 101 with Trump. We're starting to see, though, and this gives us a little bit more context. The lighter shades are some of the more interesting ones, specifically in the battlegrounds of Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. Let's very briefly just look at what little information we have out of Michigan. So with 7% of the vote in so far, we do see Harris with a 14% advantage in Michigan. Pennsylvania, only 12% of the votes have been tallied so far. And right now, Harris has a sizable lead. Looks like she's got a 40-point lead right now. That very well could be one of those blue mirage situations that we were just discussing very early on in the tabulation cycle. North Carolina, let's go to the Tar Heel state here. Let's see what they're working with. They have a fifth of the votes in, 20% of the votes in North Carolina. And Trump right now has about an 8-point lead over Harris with a fifth of the votes tallied. Finally, let's hit Georgia. And it looks like we have Trump up with an 11-point advantage. That's with over half of the votes tallied. So Trump with an 11-point lead in a battleground state. We don't know exactly which ballots were being tabulated in that. We, again, don't know if this is a red mirage, if you will. We will be waiting to see more results as they come in. There you see on your screen right there, Georgia, 52% of this state has been called. Georgia was so important. It actually had a record number of early voters. It was so robust that a top official told the Associated Press that the big day could look like a ghost town at the polls. Biden became the first Democrat to take that state since Bill Clinton in 1992. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, guys.
And Anna, of course, you've spent so much time in Georgia this cycle. Let's talk about it. You saw the vote spread there between Trump and Harris, a little over half of estimated votes counted there in the Peach State. I want to focus our efforts on Harris, too, because we've been showing a lot of the Trump election night watch party. This is the Harris night watch party right now. It looks to be quite raucous there. A lot of performances at the moment on the campus of Howard University here. So if you could, Georgia first, and then what are we seeing right now?
In Georgia, I was at a polling site today, and Georgia has 159 counties. 2 of them could be flipped. And I was in one that's leaning blue. And I spoke, actually, I kept finding voters who were saying, we're going to vote for Trump, even though, we may be Democrats, we may be Black. That's the way that we're going to vote this cycle. And people were concerned about the economy. I mean, we've seen it over and over again in the polls being conducted since the caucuses and primaries. It's the number one issue, followed by, threat to democracy, the border, immigration, those types of things. But tonight, I think the Harris campaign is taking an early victory lap. It seems to believe it's going to win. Certainly, it looks like it last night when I was with Harris in Atlanta, or I should say the Harris campaign at a party in Atlanta with 2 Chainz. And that's what we're seeing on Howard campus. People are excited. But, the election is just getting started, as you and I know.
So, Anna, I wanted to also ask you, because it seemed like, and this was evident yesterday, moving from Georgia to Pennsylvania, Harris was in Pennsylvania all day yesterday for stops before election night. And she was visiting Puerto Rican businesses. It seemed like the Harris campaign went all in on the response to that joke that was made at a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden in New York now about a week and a half ago here. Was that kind of strategic on the Harris's part, or a waste of time, money, and effort here? How do you see that? How is the Harris campaign kind of spinning that to their advantage here. It seems like they think there could be some benefit to it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Pennsylvania, out of the 7 battleground states, has the most electoral votes up for grabs. And so what we've seen is the candidates jumping around between these 7 states, sometimes multiple per day. But Harris is really focused on Pennsylvania in the end. And so, with the Puerto Rican thing, Puerto Rico, I should say, Pennsylvania's makeup of a Puerto Rican isn't high compared to other states like New York and Florida. But it's something that they've realized we can really get a lot of life out of this incendiary remark that was made at the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden a couple weeks ago. And you're right, Andrew. They've continued to hit on it again and again and again and play the racism card. And, will it work or not? It's going to be interesting to see the exit polls among Hispanic and Latino voters, even if you get really into the weeds and look at Puerto Ricans and see, did that move the needle at all? I think people's minds were already made up before that comment was made.
Anna, we were speaking earlier about the Senate and the balance of power in the Senate. We saw the race being called for Rick Scott in Florida. He's somebody that's thrown his name into consideration to become the leader of the Senate. Can you walk us through how that process works?
Yeah, so once Congress does get back this month, there's going to be a vote and move forward. Similarly with the House Speaker, move forward on who's going to be the best candidate for Republicans. For the Republicans and then as well as Democrats. But depending on who takes control tonight, if we know tonight, will determine, if it's going to be a House and Senate controlled by one party, by both, if the White House is going to be controlled by a separate party. But I think Rick Scott is throwing his hat in, and very interestingly, Florida is a state of immigrants, even with the situation at the southern border. We've seen millions of people released into the country and choosing to go to Florida, specifically South Florida, Miami-Dade area. And so Rick Scott has a firsthand understanding of, not only how to help immigrants in his state, but this population that's technically illegal in the country, and what that looks like. So I think he's got an interesting perspective.
Yeah, interesting in his very same election night victory speech, he mentioned the Republican Senate leader race as well, that he has thrown his hat into the ring here. And thank you so much for being with us. Also, we do have some of these candidates stepping up to the podium at their election night watch parties as well, including Mike Braun, who's leading the Senate. He's going to the governor's mansion there in Indianapolis. Let's listen.
I think we was up at the Moontown Brewery that we celebrated. And the journey that I've been on over the last 7 years, most people would think you've been crazy to do it in the first place. Dear, what do you think about that?
No.
Okay. All I can tell you is 7 years ago in August, when I declared to run for the U.S. Senate, there weren't many believers. And even folks close to you wondered, did you really have a game plan? Well, my game plan started very simply when I got to be the luckiest man alive to marry this lady here.
Shout out to that man. Give it up to your wife, huh?
Now you do all these fancy commercials and they don't even talk about you. They talk about my wife. We were lucky, I think, going way back when we made the decision, unlike most did then, to move back to our hometown. And when we did that, that set the stage for everything else that followed. Most people didn't think that made sense either. But had we not done that, I'm almost certain we wouldn't be here this evening. Yeah. when you marry someone that says the priority is to have my own business and raise a family, how in the hell could you argue with that? So we came back and did just that. We lived the American dream. Blessed with 4 kids, 3 of them running the business I ran for 37 years, and a family that's always been behind me and Maureen did just that. We lived the American, and a family that's always life is about. And so often you get caught in the groove where you don't want to get out of it, because that's success measured in one way. To me, once you do it, I think you need to look beyond that. And that's what I decided to do 7 years ago. So that was a tricky navigation when you didn't really have any real experience at it. As I've always said, politics and government are a lot easier than running a business. Any of you that own businesses, yeah. Hell, in government, you just got to be smart enough to not spend more than you take in. In business, you're signing the notes. Your livelihood is on the line. And by the way, there are dozens of competitors in a real market that want to take a bite out of your flank. That is difficult. Now, the difference is when you jump into the political arena, business is over a span of time. 2 hard deadlines in politics, May and November. And then you need to take all the skills that you've learned in the real world, where you've been understated, underestimated, and you've overperformed. And then it's like shooting ducks on a pond, because it's so assumed that you got to come from that pathway. I never did assume that. When you go to the U.S. Senate and you get a crew mostly of Hoosiers that come out there with you, you end up being the most successful freshman Senate office. That's something to be proud of. And yeah. And then in issues that really count, like healthcare, education, agriculture, you get more done than the senators out there you got to wheel out of there after 3 decades. Do you think I believe in term limits? Yes, I do. Everybody campaigns on it, and then they have amnesia once they get there. And let's throw in a balanced budget amendment to boot. As hard as it was to get there, it begs the question, why would you give it up? Wasn't going to do it more than 2 terms anyway. And when I saw the fork in the road to burn another 6 years there, when the numbers, the fact that they're borrowing now $1 trillion every 6 months, and it was annually just 6 years ago, the interest on the debt's as much as what we spend on defense. We need to shock that place into reality. And when you're an entrepreneur by trade, you generally, if you survive, know how to pick the best fork in the road. And there are many of them. And to me, if it was coming back to lead our state, where you can set the agenda, where you're going to get along with a legislature, imagine what you can do with that.
All All right, you've been listening there to Indiana Governor-elect Mike Braun, former Republican Senator Mike Braun, Republican Congressman Jim Banks taking his seat there in the Senate. So we got some race calls in there in Indiana. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are fastly approaching a new hour. You know what that means. Polls will be closed in even more states, though. But we do want to give you a lay of the land. Remember, we're tracking and we have vantage points inside the Harris Walls Watch Party. That's live. Also at the Trump Vance Watch Party. That's live there in West Palm Beach, Florida here. But let's talk about some of these gubernatorial races as well. We are getting a race call in a pretty big one, the Tar Heel State, Austin Westfall. Joining me in the Live Now newsroom to break it down here. What's going on in North Carolina between Mark Robinson and Josh Stein?
All right, so this was not one that we expected to be a red state gubernatorial-wise, because there has been so much controversy surrounding the GOP candidate there, Mark Robinson. There was that bombshell report that discussed some of his alleged online postings from over a decade ago on an adult web forum. He already had an uphill battle before that scandal came out. Once the scandal came out, he stopped being invited to Trump events when he was in that state. Mark Robinson's campaign basically floundered at that point. North Carolina, let's pull up some of these results and let's zoom in so that we can see how this thing played out. Josh Stein, he's the AG in the state. He will be the next governor. He's going to be succeeding Governor Roy Cooper, who was term limited. So Josh Stein going to be moving into the governor's mansion there. He won by a margin of about 8 points. North Carolina, that's a fascinating one. I want to keep it moving here because on this map too, Andrew, again, North Carolina, we kind of expected that to fall the way that it fell. New Hampshire, that's something I want to focus in on. That's the only real toss-up gubernatorial race that we were following. 32% of the votes counted so far, and Kelly Ayotte, the Republican, so far has exactly a two-point lead over Joyce Craig. Looks like there's still a lot of ballots to be counted in that competitive gubernatorial race. We'll keep you posted. I think we have some props to get to.
Yeah, that's right. So we have now a resolution to the North Carolina gubernatorial contest that got so much attention with those bombshell reports about some of Mark Robinson's alleged online behavior. This is the election night watch party for Robinson's supporters here, Austin. So if we see any campaign staffers of Robinson himself take to the podium there, we'll bring this live as well. So that's a lot.
So, guys, if you just heard in North Carolina that Mark Robinson lost the governor race, and I'm going to tell you why Mark Robinson possibly lost this race. For one, Mark Robinson did not address the scandal that came about head on. I think that really hurt him. It really did. It really the scandal really hurted him. And what he should have done was said, "This is not me. This is, this is not me." And for whatever reason, he didn't do that. And I don't know why he didn't do it. I don't know if it was because of fear. I don't know if it's because he was scared. I don't know. But that's what he should have done. And personally, that hurt him. That really did. That really did hurt Mark Robinson. He should have faced that problem head on. And it took him so long to respond. He didn't do he didn't even file any paperwork to sue. He just said, "Oh, we're going to investigate." So it made people think that those allegations was somewhat true. I mean, granted, you know what I'm saying? If he, I wouldn't have ran no race if I knew that I had something like that out there. Because people got to understand, when it's politics, these politicians that's going against you, they're going to research way back, buddy. They're going to look at every nook and cranny of what you've done. And they're not going to stop till they get something. And that's what happened with Mark. Mark Robinson got a little bit too comfortable. I mean, if he would have stated, "Yeah, that right there, I'm aware of this. This is not me, and I'm suing. I'm suing CNN that first brought this. Then that would have been it. They would have been like, okay, all right, well, he ain't lying about that. But he didn't do that. He just sat back and just let it do what it do, which to me was the dumbest thing he could have possibly done. I would have stood up on that, man. I don't care. They wouldn't have got me. Hell to the nah. But anyway, that's just my personal. Chapanelli. Get back to the commentary.
To realize that those expected mothers who need help will still be able to get it. So just some of the reaction that we're now seeing come in on social media in response to these amendments failing. Again, with the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, one of the first people to speak out on social about this amendment failing. Andrew.
All right, Christina, thanks so much. Those were definitely key to watch there in Florida. We'll check in very, very soon. We are in a new hour. It's a little past 7 o'clock here Mountain Time, 9 o'clock there on the East Coast. Let's go to New Jersey right now. Congressman Democrat Andy Kim giving a victory speech there in New Jersey, winning his Senate race. Let's watch.
I know that many of you took risks to join this campaign. You had people doubt your choice to join this campaign. You worked long hours and struggled and stressed about the challenges we confronted. I hope you take pride in this moment. Whoever says young people don't care about politics haven't met the young people that are the engine, power, and campaigns all over this nation. And to our supporters, look what we've accomplished. Look what we've been able to do. By most standards of what is possible, this moment right now should not be occurring. A year ago, 6 years ago, few believed we could show that what we could accomplish. That we showed that politics isn't some exclusive club just for the well-off and the well-connected. Right. That we built something that epitomizes the grassroots. I hope this experience has brought you closer to understanding the essence of our democracy, that you have a deeper understanding of what it means to be a citizen of this great country, and that you feel empowered by that. You've heard me say this line a lot, and I'll say it again tonight, that I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy. And by extension, I hope that you've seen our campaign as a means of being the opposite of that helplessness. Yes. Yes. I hope this moment is every bit as meaningful for you as it is for me. I want to say thank you to my family. My parents and my sister are here, who gave me the grounding in service and purpose that powers me every day. To my wife, Cammie. Cammie, look what we've accomplished. Look what we've done. For them, right? Yep. I'm just so proud of our family and what we've been able to do, our humble family, be able to take this kind of actions. To my boys. I'm proud of the two of you. You know, I know that this has been tough. I know it hasn't been easy. And I know there have been moments where I haven't always been there for you in the way that I wished I was as a father. But I hope you're proud of me. And I hope that when you learn about this moment in America, that you come to understand why I did what I did. And why I fight for you. That's what this is about. I chose this hotel for a particular reason. 37 years ago, when I was 5 years old, my family and I lived out of this hotel for several weeks when we first moved to New Jersey. My first nights in this state were right here in this hotel. My dad had just accepted a job, his very first job ever, working at a lab in Camden to do cancer research. And we were looking for a home for us to rent. My very first nights, as I said, were here, and some of the strongest memories I have ever had in my life, early moments of my life, were here. I remember staying here. I remember there was a restaurant here. I think it was called Circles. I can't remember, but I just remember feeling like the food was amazing. I was like, people in New Jersey live good here. Quality of the food, high class. I felt like a prince. And I just have to say, I wanted to be here tonight in this hotel. I wanted to pay tribute to my parents, to my family, to the state, for giving a kid like me a chance to be able to dream, for giving me the tools through public education and a kind community. Yeah. It wasn't easy initially. We had no family to lean on here, no friends to help us get started, but New Jersey welcomed us. I wanted to return here tonight to give perspective. For my parents, this hotel was an important step in achieving the American dream and in ultimately giving back to this state. My parents taught me something I'll never forget. They taught me to love America. I revere this country. I am in awe of America. When I worked at the White House, I've shared this story before. When I worked at the White House, I had a pair of black, pristine leather shoes that I would only wear whenever I was asked to go into the Oval Office. I wanted to treat that room different. I wanted to remind myself that I'm part of something bigger than all of us. And it's because of my reverence for this nation that it also pains me to our core to see the struggles that we are going through. That we aren't just having policy debates and fights, but instead the very foundation of our democracy is rendered fragile. People tell me they simply didn't trust their public servants. They simply didn't trust that the politics was working for them. That they didn't think that the big challenges we face in our family and as a state are solvable because they thought nobody.
All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry, I've been going in and out. Like I said, it's kind of like a hangout night. I'm just streaming. My wife is currently got me going from point A to point B, checking things out. You know how that goes with family life. But anyway, I'm gonna get off of him for now. So far we done talked about what states that we do know that Kamala has won so far. I'm gonna get on here and try to look at the interactive map. So this is what we know so far on the interactive map. And I'm about to go and show y'all on the Fox News side what we looking at. All right, I'm gonna try to see if I can get this map bigger. All right, so here we go. Right now, Trump's got 178 electoral votes. Kamala has 113. So far, Florida is secured by Trump. Alabama secured by Trump. South Carolina is secured by Trump. Now, allegedly, North Carolina, that I was told, let me see what they say about North Carolina. Let me see what it looks like. All right, so North Carolina right now, they got Trump at 51.9% with 39.86% in. North Carolina's a toss-up, guys. We hoping that he gets North Carolina, but then again, he may not, because y'all just seen that North Carolina just voted in a liberal governor, which I told you that happened because of the fact of the matter, and I still said it, that Mark Robinson messed up the campaign without heading those alleged allegations of him and that scandal, having a dating website and all this stuff while he was married. He should have headed it on, even if it was back in 2007, 2008, and I think the latest one was like 2017. I mean, he should have headed it on, but you know, it happens, I guess. Virginia, they are still saying that Kamala could get Virginia. That is still in play for her. Right now, they saying Trump is leading in Virginia. Now, here's the thing: if Trump gets Virginia and he gets Pennsylvania, which right now it looks like 19% of the votes are in, and she's leading in Pennsylvania. And I think those are really Philadelphia numbers, because Philadelphia is very liberal. So that whole district is going to vote nothing but uh, blue. I mean, it's very unlikely they vote red. It's Philly, especially in the Philly area, very unlikely. Wow. So trying to break it down and see by district. One got the biggest polls. Select county. It's that. Playing around. So yeah, that's what's going on with that. So I really hope Trump wins Pennsylvania, but the way it's looking, he may not get Pennsylvania. But I'm quite sure he getting everything else. Let me go back to the map. See anybody out here yet? Got one. Y'all hit the like button, please. Please hit the like button. What's up, Unified TV, man? Hit the likes, man. Share the live, man. Trying to find out here what it looking like for Trump. So we're gonna go back to the president race and just break this down. So this is what's been called so far. Trump secured Ohio. He's at 195. This is going to be a landslide, dude. I'm telling you, Trump's moving. If we can get Trump to 270 before the end of the night, it's a wrap. He's already got Texas. All he needs now to pick up Georgia. I hope he gets North Carolina because they're saying he's winning North Carolina and Virginia. If he smashes those three, bro, 16 says 32. That's 45. And then all he's got to pick up then is Michigan, which that's he could possibly get Michigan. It's close. He's definitely leading for Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. Iowa's leading right now with Harris, so it may go then. But if we get Minnesota, Wisconsin, I'm quite sure we'll win Montana. New Mexico, quite sure we get that. And Arizona. I don't think we get Hawaii. That ain't happening. Yeah, that's it, man. That's all we got to get, man. We just got to get these three areas right here. If we can get Georgia secured, North Carolina, Virginia, and Minnesota, or Arizona, we're good, man. Like I said, this is going to be close. I knew we weren't going to get Illinois because Illinois is a very Democratic stronghold. But I'm glad we got Ohio. All good, son. Yeah, I know. I'm happy too. We just got to make sure that we secure. My son came by to see me. He's looking at the results too. We got it. Well, Georgia ain't counted out. Got his counting yet.
I know. We're not all the way complete.
I don't know why.
I really think it's because a lot of people didn't vote.
Yeah, that could be it too.
I heard in Georgia.
Yeah. All right. All right, guys. We're gonna go back to what they're saying right now. Go back to the broadcast. I showed y'all that. Fair use, guys, like always.
Live events going on right now. Let's stay in New York right now. Democratic Senator out of New York, Kirsten Gillibrand. She's speaking there at her watch party. Let's listen.
Congrats.
With our Cyber Academy, so kids can actually go to college free in exchange for public service as our cyber defenders. That will help us keep our country safer. So we have a lot of work to do, but one of the issues that I think people in New York feel most passionate about is guaranteeing women equality in the state. Making sure that we have our civil liberties and civil rights, making sure that we get to make those life and death decisions over our bodies when we're having children, under what circumstances. We have to guarantee an equal rights amendment in New York State. I hope everybody will vote yes on Prop 1. Added to our U.S. Constitution as well. So, other things that I hope we can work on in this next Congress, we need a national paid leave policy. We need to make sure that families don't have to make these tough decisions about caring for a child or a loved one and bringing home a paycheck. We have to make sure we keep supporting our workers, strengthening our abilities to join unions, to collectively bargain for wages and benefits. We have to expand access to healthcare and keep bringing down the cost of medicine. And last but not least, I will fight against the politics of hate and division in this country. No student should feel unsafe being on a college campus because of anti-Semitism. Any kind of bigotry of any kind. We have to, as a nation, figure out who we are. We are a country that used to love one another, that used to care about our neighbors, that treat others the way we wanted to be treated. We have to focus on all that is noble, all that is right, all that is pure and admirable, and we have to lift that up into our national dialogue. Now, I know you're thinking that's a lot of things to get done, but we are going to have a Congress to pass this agenda. Because of the work the governor has done, because of the work that Hakeem Jeffries and I have done, we are going to have a majority in the U.S. Congress, and we are going to elect our new speaker as Hakeem Jeffries. Now, this coordinated campaign that the governor and I, Hakeem, worked on is extraordinary. We were able to work with Chairman Jacobs to build the greatest turnout machine that has ever been seen in New York State, and I'd argue anywhere in the country. We have 40 offices across these battleground districts, 23,000 volunteers, 150 staff. We've knocked on 1.3 million doors, and we have made over 5 million phone calls to voters. So I'm going to tell you tonight, we are going to see victories up and down the Hudson Valley, all across Long Island, in Syracuse. We are going to flip the House of Representatives right here in New York State.
All right, Senator Gillibrand there at her victory watch party. I want to put up the results there for Gillibrand. Quite an easy go at it against a Republican challenger there. This wasn't necessarily one of those competitive races, but also we just brought you the news. Harris getting all 28 of New York State's electoral college tally there, electoral votes rather. And so in the meantime, though, we do have yet another state call. Let's move from New York now to Texas, and the Associated Press is calling Texas for former President Donald Trump. So Trump getting Texas's 40 electoral votes there. This is with 58% of estimated votes counted. And I'm bringing into the conversation Austin Westfall yet again here. So Austin, right now, Texas going to Trump. Kind of knew that. New York going for Harris, definitely knew that here. I think right now, and we want to bring in Tom LoBianco, because I think all eyes right now are on this Ohio Senate race, aren't they?
Yeah, all eyes are on the Senate race. And real quick here, just because we mentioned them, no, New York, Texas are not surprising, but nonetheless, they both carry a lot of electoral votes. So now that we see that New York is officially in Kamala's bin, she's at 99, Texas, Trump is at 177. I'm interested to see how this Senate race in Texas plays out as more results come in. I'm also interested, as you said, Andrew, in the Ohio Senate race. And Tom, I'll start with you here. What are the stakes of the Ohio Senate race? So far, we've seen that Trump has a sizable lead over Harris in Ohio, but we don't see that Moreno has the same sizable lead. He has a lead, but not that same sizable lead that Trump had. What do you make of that?
Well, it definitely looks like the Senate is going to be a Republican at the end of all this. That's one thing think we'll feel pretty confident about with some of these early race calls. So that's really important. But how Republican then? If Sherrod Brown's able to hold on, then that probably hurts the control there. But this is really interesting this cycle. The split ticket voting. We talked about that before. We're starting to see this in play, especially with working class voters, working class men. And that's a really big dynamic this cycle.
Yeah, and just to set the stage here, Tom LoBianco with 24-Site is going to be with us throughout the hour, kind of popping in, reacting in real time to some of these results. Though we do have some live events going on right now. I want to go out to North Carolina. Josh Stein there, the Democratic Attorney General, just won the governor's race over Lieutenant Governor Republican Mark Robinson. He's at his election night victory party here. Let's listen.
When we go together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, but as North Carolinians. And I know we can do this because I know who we are. I have met so many inspiring people across this state. Debbie and Cornelius, who tragically lost her son to fentanyl and is fighting to protect other families from that same fate. Lauren, a teacher in Greenville, who digs into her own pocket to buy school supplies for her students to give them a better chance. I want to thank everyone I have met along the way for sharing your stories with me. And to the thousands and thousands of people from every corner of this state who helped to build this campaign, I am forever grateful for your support. Thank you for believing in the promise of North Carolina. And if I didn't earn your vote in this election, I hope to earn your trust by working hard for you as your governor. I pledge to listen and work across party lines to do what's right for North Carolina, because no person or party has a monopoly on good ideas. To all of the smart aleck young people on my campaign, thank you for the long days and late nights. Thank you for the hard and high quality work. And thank you for the laughter along the way. They, by the way, are incredible. I also want to thank Governor Cooper. Let's give that man the hand that he deserves. Roy Cooper has led our state with a steady hand through an unprecedented global pandemic, a 1,000-year storm in the West, and 2 500-year floods in the East. He expanded Medicaid, strengthened our business climate, and fought for our public schools. Roy, I could not be more grateful for your service and your friendship, and do not even think about changing your cell phone number on me. My parents, Adam and Jane, raised my brother Eric and my sister Gerda to try to do what is right, just like they did. It's truly one of the best gifts that parents can give to their children. I want to thank them, and I hate that my dad got a bug yesterday working early voting, and so they're watching it here on TV. Let's all say thank you, Adam and Jane. To my wife, Anna. Otherwise known as a rock star. Thank you for being the glue that keeps our family together, for keeping me focused on the things that really matter, and for being you. She is going to be a remarkable First Lady. We are blessed to have our 3 kids here today, Sam, Adam, and Leah. Mom and I love you very much and are incredibly proud of you. Fundamentally, this campaign is about you and all of the young people of North Carolina. We want all of you to want to call North Carolina home the same way we do. Friends, we are so blessed to be of this place. And while nowhere is perfect, I firmly believe that whatever may be wrong with our state can be repaired by all that is right. After all, North Carolina is where the Greensboro Four sat down and the Wright brothers took flight. It's where my father joined Julius Chambers and James Ferguson to form North Carolina's first integrated law firm to fight for equality and opportunity for all. It's where people come together to solve tough problems and believe that our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. This is our North Carolina. This is our home. Tonight, let's celebrate this hard-fought victory, and tomorrow we will get back to work to building a North Carolina that is safer, stronger, and more prosperous for everyone. Thank you, and may God bless you, and may God bless the state of North Carolina. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. North Carolina Governor-elect Josh Stein at his victory party there, thanking his family, thanking his supporters. Of course, the incumbent governor right now, Roy Cooper, term limited there. So this stays in Democratic hands. So Stein there besting the Republican gubernatorial candidate, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson there. And you can see right now the race is called by the AP. But there is right now a 15-point margin there. And this was to be expected. You see it there on your screen as well. All right, I'm Andrew Kraft. We are at the bottom of the hour. Let's step away. Let's step out of North Carolina. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be giving you the latest updates. We'll get an electoral college vote tally. Also, we'll be tracking some of the results coming in key Senate races in Ohio and Texas as well. A lot more on this election night in 2 minutes.
All right, I'm back, guys. So it's getting crazy out here. So it looks like Georgia may be red.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here on this election night. I want to bring to the conversation my colleague, Oscar Westfall, here in the Live Now newsroom, and 24 Sites, Tom LoBianco. We all are here tracking all of this, and we have a lot to get to. Let's first start off right now. Where does the Electoral College stand at 9:30 Eastern, Austin?
Right now, the Electoral College, and let's get over to this because we are starting to see Trump 178 here, and we'll make sure that we've got the map up because Trump is getting, right now, he is just under 100 points away from that magic number 270. Harris with 99. There are still a lot of big Democratic states that are yet to be called. California, Oregon, Washington, those are going to be some of the bigger states that are going to put some more votes on the Harris side. Nonetheless, we're, of course, tracking all the battleground states, that being Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia. We have no results yet out of the two western battleground states, Arizona and Nevada. But as you can see so far right now, as we look at Wisconsin, at least where it stands, with 12% of the votes counted, it looks like this battleground state, Trump has a 4-point lead so far. That state leaning red at this early hour. Michigan, let's look at that. 12% of the votes counted. Right now, Harris has about an 8% lead in Michigan. Pennsylvania, what many consider to be, it's an easy argument to be made, that this is the most crucial battleground state of them all. Just over a quarter of the votes have been tallied so far, and right now Harris has an 11-point lead over Donald Trump. We'll see if more Republican votes file in as the night progresses. Of course, every single poll has indicated that that is as tight as can be. Moving down to some of these southern states, let's focus on North Carolina. 58% of the vote being tallied so far, and right now Trump has about a 4-point lead. That's looking more like a 3-point lead for Trump in the Tar Heel state. The final one I'll get to here is Georgia. Andrew, 75% of the vote tallied. 3/4 of the vote is in the Peach State. Trump has a 5.4% lead. That's where we're at right now.
All right, Austin, thanks so much. Tom,
that's where we at right now, guys. 178 to 98, baby.
Kind of giving the roundup.
We just need 100 points, y'all.
Can we glean anything from them, from the results coming in right now?
I want it to be a landslide. I need it to be
super helpful there. Look, the numbers that we are seeing right now from Georgia and North Carolina really seem to show him running away with it down in the Sun Belt, okay, especially in Georgia. All right. Now, this is very tentative, but some of the early exit polls we have seen have shown Trump show a lot more men voters showing up and supporting Trump. All right. And that's a really big dynamic. We've talked a lot about women voters with Harris. All right. But up in the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, all right, Pennsylvania, especially in Wisconsin and Michigan, we're still not too many returns yet. I think I saw like 9% returns, something like that, up in Wisconsin. So it's going to be a little while before we see what's happening up in the Rust Belt, Blue Wall. But down the Sun Belt, especially in Georgia, it's looking really good for Trump right now.
Real damn good.
All right, we do have live pictures there inside the Trump-Vance election night watch party. We also have live pictures outside there at the Harris-Walz election night watch party as well there on the campus of Howard University in Washington. Tom, let's talk, though, now about some of these key Senate races that we're getting the results in. Let's focus our efforts first there in Ohio between the Democratic incumbent Sherrod Brown and his Republican challenger, Bernie Moreno, and we were talking before the break, Austin, you and I, about the Senate map and the Senate makeup here. This is where it stands between Moreno and Brown. What can we glean from this?
Yeah, and I'll just do a quick run through here because there was a number, and if you come out to the map here, I want to show off a little bit of what we're working with here. So you'll see an odd color. That's yellow. That's because and Vermont and Maine both leaning for their independent incumbents in both of those cases. Senator King and Senator Sanders expected to win in Vermont and Maine. That's why you see yellow. As far as battleground states go in the Senate, there are toss-up races, at least what have been considered to be toss-up races before the election. In Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, we've been eyeballing Nebraska to see if the independent challenger there could make some noise. It appears so far that state is leaning red. So Montana, that's going to be an interesting to glean from once we start getting results in. But Tom, and this is something that we're going to be focusing on a lot, is Ohio. Many thought that the three-term incumbent senator there, Sherrod Brown, he has been elected in favorable Democratic years. I believe the first time he was elected was in light of the war. That was back in 2006. That was a favorable year for Democrats. 6 years later, that was an Obama year. That was another favorable year for Democrats. The last time he was up for election was in the midterm after Trump was elected. There was a blue wave there. Is this the toughest challenge yet and the most polarizing race we've seen Sherrod Brown participate in so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there is, I was talking with one of my longtime Republican sources about this a couple days ago, and we're going to know a lot after we see all the tallies. But the Democrats still have a problem up in the Rust Belt with working class voters. Okay. And, big questions on what happens with the presidential. But Sherrod Brown always was one of the, more populist Democrats and was able to outpace national Democrats in Ohio. That might be changing. Okay. That's really important to watch. And if that is, I think that's a leading indicator of a bigger problem for Democrats right now. But again,
Tom, just want to chime in here. We are getting a race call because we're talking about Senate races, Tom. This is a Senate race in Maryland. This is an open seat here. Angela Alsobrooks, the Democrat, beating former Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, there in this Senate seat. It's being vacated by retiring Democrat Ben Cardin there. So this seat stays in Democratic hands here. Tom, Austin, let's comment on this. A lot of Republicans, and you and I have talked about this race, Tom, have thought this could be a pickup, that Hogan would somehow, materialize a victory. That's not the case here tonight. 55-43 with a little over half of estimated votes counted here. This was also Brooks to lose. She has not done that. The AP calling the race for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I remember years ago when then Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele ran against Ben Cardin. All right. And there was a lot of talk that he might be the Republican to do it, especially because he was the first elected black statewide politician in Maryland. Okay. He ended up losing by a pretty similar margin to that. Now, we don't know because we've only seen about 55% or so right now. But if that divide holds up, it just really goes to show for Maryland. I mean, Hogan was an incredibly popular governor of Maryland and did a lot to break away from Trump, which is what you need to do in traditionally blue Maryland. Maybe you just can't win statewide, or at least in these Senate races.
Yeah. So Tom, talk to us because there are several examples around the country, correct, of some of these competitive races where the candidates have had to move more to the center in order to win votes in these battleground states. Can you talk about some of the notable ones?
Well, we used to say 40 years ago, 50 years ago, all politics is local. I think it's all politics is national now. I'm not sure that you can break away from this stuff. I remember I was up at the state fair in Maryland not too long ago, and you had the Larry Hogan signs next to the Donald Trump signs at the Maryland Republican Party booth.
All right, guys,
and
I'll
you
be
can tell
right
he didn't
back.
want
I'm
anything
going
to do with
leave
it.
y'all with the commentary.
All politics is really national now. It's changed so much from the way it used to be.
Give me one moment.
All right, we do have some more of these results coming in. I want to stay, though, on the Senate races. Let's focus our efforts on Texas right now. We just got this live picture up there. This is in Texas at the Colin Allred election night watch party here. Let's put up that race right now. This is quite a sizable lead Cruz has over Allred at the moment. 64% of estimated votes counted. Democrats were somewhat bullish here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Were Republicans worried about how Ted Cruz would do? The race hasn't been called yet, but we see the vote spread here.
Well, my Republican sources were never really worried about the Cruz race. I think you heard more from Democratic sources that they might be able to ride a wave of support from women in this election, and maybe potentially get Allred up over the top. Cruz historically has been fairly unpopular, as statewide go for Texas, but that doesn't seem to be the case right so far. But again, we still got 1/3 of the vote still to come in. That could change, but as these race calls go, it becomes harder later in when you have more of the precincts reporting. It becomes a lot harder for these candidates to overtake a gap of that size. So it looks like Cruz is in pretty good position right now.
Even though Texas is a deep red state, is there anything to learn from some of the counties within a deep red state like that?
Well, it's, we've been talking about this as the gender election. And, boy, you talk about, groups of voters that are not a monolith. Men and women are not monolithic. They do not vote uniformly. Okay. I think we really got to look at and especially as the exit polls come back, more, and we match that up with the actual vote tallies, I think we're going to have to look at some of the key dynamics, what people are talking about, what concerns them. Abortion is not the only animating issue for women. I heard a lot about the economy too. And Trump seems to do better on the economy with women. But that's also not always the case, because Harris had been cutting into that. So it's elections are always wild. There's always surprises on election night.
Tom, while we have you, though, let's focus our efforts on one more key Senate race we're watching. Let's go to Wisconsin now, between Democratic incumbent Tammy Baldwin and her Republican challenger, Eric Hovde there. This is only with around 22% of estimated votes counted. Baldwin up over Hovde, not by much, though. How much trouble is Tammy Baldwin in? Should Democrats be worried?
Could be. This is, okay, so we were talking earlier about split ticket voting. This is one of the strangest things I've seen this election. Tammy Baldwin had put out some mailers or advertisements where the Democrats was talking about supporting Trump trade policies back when he was in office. I mean, the political bedfellows this cycle are some of the strangest I've ever seen. Now, she could be in good shape. One of the things, over on the 24 Site podcast, the Ground Game podcast I run out of 24 Site with my friend Patrick Finkston, we had on Charlie Sykes a little while ago, and he was talking about how Republicans used to have a very good ground operation in Wisconsin. Scott Walker, Wrights Priebus, back in the day, about a decade ago. Democrats have usurped that and have done a lot better under Ben Wickler, Democratic Party chair in Wisconsin. Ground games, turnout, operations, those things matter, especially in tight races like this. So, it's not unforeseeable that she wins and Trump wins too in Wisconsin. That's not out of the realm of possibility here.
Let's back up here. Let's go back to Political Science 101 for a minute, Tom. Explain to us why we're talking so much about the balance of power in the Senate and the House. How does that dictate how powerful of a president we're going to be working with?
Well, I'll tell you, you hear voters complain a lot about how Washington doesn't get anything done and need to return to normal order. It is incredibly hard to pass legislation through Congress and get it to any president's desk these days. And certainly a lot of that has to do with the Senate. You'd need to be able to break a filibuster. And, with the exception of the courts, it's 60 votes. And, neither side, the traditionalists in the Senate, have wanted to touch that. Okay. So in a strong sense, no matter if you get a Harris presidency or a Trump presidency again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to move things. Now, where that comes into play is those nominations, and whether you're able to get actually confirmed, the judges, but also the secretaries, the cabinet. If you're able to get them confirmed, that gives them more power, and that's really important here. And the Senate Republicans could be. I mean, they look to be in a very strong position right now. And if this goes as it looks, it might go with John Thune potentially becoming the Senate Majority Leader. And again, a lot of things still yet to play out within the Senate Republican Conference. That would give Senate Republicans and Senator John Thune out of South Dakota a lot of power.
Yeah, Tom, speaking of who would be in charge of Senate Republicans, who would be the leader there, we aired Rick Scott's victory speech last hour, and almost in the same breath, he moved on to yet another race he's waging, and that is for Republican leader in the Senate. He's thrown his hat into the ring. He's been very critical of current leader McConnell. McConnell stepping back, but will remain in the Senate here. So I believe those elections take place internally for Republicans on the House and Senate side, November 13th. We won't put the cart before the horse here. We'll focus on today's election. But I just want to get your sense here. Let's focus on the Harris-Trump campaigns right now. And Tom, you got a lot of sources within the Trump campaign. That's their election night watch party. We have this, what we call a switched feed here. We're seeing a lot of folks there with red MAGA hats. I also just saw one of these Jewish Trump voters as well. You see there, people taking selfies. So, you can get a sense of the vibes. You can't really glean anything results-wise from how the parties are doing. Maybe a little bit later on you can. But what do you see when you look at this shot we have inside Trump HQ?
Well, this campaign, we've talked about this extensively throughout the election, is, as Trump campaigns go, has been remarkably disciplined. All right. And you got to give credit to Susie Wiles there and Chris LaCivita and Tony Fabrizio, kind of that trio at the top of this operation. All right. But there have been a lot of concerns. I mean, look, when the Iowa poll came out, Ann Selzer showing a lot of problem with women voters in Iowa for Trump. You started seeing that reflected by Trump himself on stage at these rallies. All right, whether it's performative on purpose or whether he's just getting tired and worn out, whatever the reason, he's very transparent in his emotions and how he's feeling about things. We've always known that about him. So I don't know. Look, the early results that we're seeing, again, go back to the Sun Belt, especially Georgia and North Carolina, doing incredibly well there. And if these exit polls turn out to be correct, with a larger number of men breaking for Trump, especially with minorities, Black and Latino voters, that gives a lot of confidence. All right. And you can see that reflected in the crowd. But there's still a lot of concerns with women breaking hard for Harris. All right. In the last couple of days of the race. So still a lot to be determined here.
Yeah,
but still,
Tom,
this is early.
It is early, Tom. I mean, I keep reiterating that point. We have a live picture, though, at Harris's election night watch party there on the campus of Howard University. Of course, she's an alum there. So let's talk about how the Harris campaign might be feeling. I've been citing this all day today, Tom. Senior advisor to the Harris campaign, David Plouffe, was on CNN last night at this time with Aaron Burnett. He says the campaign, they believe they can win all 7 battleground states. Now, is that what some political pollsters and pundits call hopium or not here? What does that mean?
No. I just, based on what we're seeing so far tonight, that looks incredibly unlikely to happen. Okay. And that's standard for any campaign. Top of the campaign, they're always going to say that. But look, we saw some of the early exits from NBC News. There was a lot of talk a couple days ago about the Madison Square Garden rally and the Puerto Rico comments really damaging Trump with Latinos and Puerto Ricans. Okay. That does not seem to have translated among the electorate, especially among Latino, the men, all right, and 3rd and 4th generation younger Latinos, all right. So if that is the case, it's going to be a lot harder for her. Especially, you can't even talk about places like Arizona at that point. Nevada could be a little bit different. All right, Nevada it's its own unique beast, but in Arizona, if that trend stays true, you can pretty much write off Arizona for Harris. And again, and then it becomes an issue in Pennsylvania. All right, we got to look at Allentown, the Lehigh Valley. All right, and you got to watch the returns coming out of there. That was the big concern. All right, Pennsylvania is really a must-win for Harris. Okay, it's not as much of a must-win for Trump, but for Harris, it looked like she needs that blue wall to hold.
Sure.
Before we go, Tom, I got to ask you about Puerto Ricans, because there's an interesting statistic coming out of Osceola County. This is just south of Orlando. Right now, Trump, with 95% of the votes counted, Trump has 50%, Harris 48%. So Trump's up by 2 points. If I'm looking back 4 years ago, Biden won Osceola County by 14 points. So we're seeing a sizable shift. This county is important because I believe around 1/3 of the population there are Puerto Ricans. What do you make of Trump seeming to gain some ground in a county like this?
Yeah. One of the big things, and this is really important, we had Mike Madrid on the Ground Game podcast recently. He specializes in Latino voters. Look at the way Trump talks about immigration, the wall, wanting to crack down on immigration. Especially, of course, now we should note here, of course, that Puerto Ricans are Americans, all right? But culturally, the problem was Tony Hinchcliffe dumping on the entire culture. It was very racist. Trump, if you listen to him, he talks a lot about illegal immigration. And among Latino voters, especially people who have been here 3 and 4 generations deep now, all right, they agree with that. And you start to see that movement among the younger Latinos towards Trump. And that's really key in understanding this dynamic. You also got to remember too, especially for Latinos, large South American population, Colombian, Venezuelans, Cubans are getting older now, or the expats down in Florida, very traditionally conservative, socially conservative. And you got a lot of that down in South Florida, okay? So when we talk about voter groups, no group is a monolith. And sometimes Democrats seem to forget that.
All right. Tom LoBianco with 24/7. Tom, can't thank you enough. This entire year, you've been so instrumental.
Thank you, guys.
Austin, thank you too. We're going to take our final commercial break of this hour. More results where that came from. We're also going out live to the Trump Vance watch party in West Palm Beach. Some of our reporters standing by. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here as we approach yet the top of a new hour. In the meantime, like I said before the break, let's go out now live to West Palm Beach, Florida, to the Trump-Vance election night watch party. That's where we find Fox News' Rebecca Castor with the latest there. Rebecca, good to see you here. How's the energy there in the room?
Hey, Andrew. Well, of course, with this being filled with Trump supporters, they are excited and encouraged. The Trump campaign advisors, they tell us that they feel they're on track for a good night. They're encouraged by some of this exit polling that is coming in. The supporters here, they cheer every time a state is called for the former president. Trump, though, is watching this all go down from Mar-a-Lago, where he's watching the returns come in with family and friends. Former President Trump is spending election night where he kicked off his campaign in Palm Beach, alongside one of his biggest supporters, Elon Musk. And his team is feeling confident they can secure the magic number of 270 electoral votes.
For early voting, it was definitely, we didn't have as much mail turnout, and that's not just for our party, that's for any party in terms of voting. But after today, we're seeing a change, and we're seeing such optimism.
Millions of voters braved long lines to cast their ballots, each with different issues in mind.
Under a new Trump administration, I think we're going to have more secure borders.
We have everything going for us. We're going to lose a lot of that if Trump wins.
But with the race neck and neck, it could be days before we know the final results. During a visit to thank his campaign staff, the former president expressed his frustration with the vote counting process.
They should do paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID, and be done. One day, same day. And you'd have it by 10 o'clock.
No matter the outcome, the winner of this election will have a challenging task on the first day of their administration.
One of the most important jobs of whoever the president-elect is going to be has got to be unifying the country.
Donald Trump was asked earlier today if he'll accept the results of this election if he loses. He said, if it's, quote, a fair election, I'll be the first to acknowledge it. Andrew, back to you.
So, Rebecca, I had a question because remember, a lot of reporters have been asking Trump whether or not he would be voting in favor of Amendment Question 3 and 4 on marijuana and abortion in Florida. We haven't really gotten a sense of how he voted on that, though we do know those questions failed there in Florida.
Yes, so we didn't really get a clear answer from Trump on how he voted on those measures. But as you said, really not a big deal. They failed today.
All right, Rebecca Castor there live for us in West Palm Beach. Rebecca, talk soon. Thanks so much. All right, in the meantime here, we do have yet another race call that we have to make. The Associated Press calling Missouri for Donald Trump here. Let's take that. You see there, 30% of estimated votes counted right now, though this was enough to call the race for Trump there in the Show Me State. There you can see the vote margin. So in the meantime, we do want to bring you into the conversation as well. Remember, we're checking in on some of the trends going on social media as well, because we are about 15 seconds away from the top of the next hour. That means polls will close in some of these western states as well. Let's check in with Live Now's Christina Evans, and she joins me. Christina, what's going on social media right now?
Absolutely, Andrew. It's been a very busy night on social media as well. We're getting a lot of updates and able to see what's happening on the ground in certain states, including Arizona, one of those critical battleground states. I do want to show you another look here in our social center so you can get an idea of kind of how we're tracking these tweets and these other posts as they're coming in to our newsroom. But let's talk about the latest one that we're seeing out of Arizona. This is thanks to Fox 10. We're getting this update. What you're seeing now on your screen, this is an update there from Fox 10 reporter Kinsey Beach. She's there on the campus of Arizona State University in Tempe. As you can see, polls have closed in this location, but the lines are still long there, with students still putting in their opportunity to cast their vote for the presidential election and some of those other elections happening there in the battleground state of Arizona. So she did say that folks are encouraged to stay in line so that way their votes will be counted. But in areas like on college campuses at Arizona State University specifically, lines are still long, even though the polls have closed in Arizona. I do want to also give you an update here on Live Now. Another look at another place in Arizona where the polls are going to remain open. This is the Navajo Nation area in Apache County. This is all thanks to the Navajo Nation president that he filed a lawsuit to extend polling hours to accommodate voters. This after the Arizona Secretary of State said that voters in the county experienced issues with e-poll books and printers. So we do know there in the Navajo Nation, those polls will remain open until 9 p.m. local time. That's just another hour or so in the state of Arizona. So again, they will stay open so that way the Navajo Nation members can cast their vote there for the presidential election. Again, Arizona, one of those critical battleground states that we're keeping a very close eye on in this election. Will be interesting to see how these things shake out, but long lines are happening on social media, but folks remaining in place to make sure that their voice is heard.
Yeah, that's of course so true. If you're in line, stay in line. That's the message from some of these election officials there in some of these battleground states. Christina Evans, thanks so much. We'll talk soon. In the meantime here, we do want to kind of reset here at the top of the hour. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. So we are going to go through some of the Electoral College vote tallies at the moment. If we could pop that up there in the lower left hand of your screen, you see where the tally stands right now. Trump with 198 Electoral College votes, Harris with 99, though it is still early, of course. Polls now closed in some of these western battleground states like Nevada, like Arizona, like Montana, like Utah as well. We're tracking some down ballot races in those states, including some of these key Senate races. there as well. In the meantime, we do have, let's go back to Michigan now. The Secretary of State there, Jocelyn Benson, she's addressing the press. Let's watch.
Clear and unequivocal will of the voters. This is an incredible day for Michigan, and this is an incredible day for our nation. My thanks to clerks and staff all across the state who worked long and difficult hours over the last several months preparing for today. Their preparation paid off in a smooth and successful election, and I'm grateful to so many members of my team here tonight who helped facilitate that work all throughout the state, all day today, and the many partners we have had along the way, from our faith leaders to, yes, our sports teams. And that's one of the reasons why we're here in Ford Field tonight, to really emphasize how important these partnerships were, from faith leaders to sports leaders to business leaders to law enforcement and our Attorney General, all of whom share with us a belief that our democracy is at its strongest when every voice is heard and when every vote is counted. Finally, I want to thank the millions of voters who participated in our democracy this election. Just like our Lions, you have made winners of all of us. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. Go ahead.
Darylyn Horn with WWJ. Were there any instances of any issues or any misinformation spread today? And if so, how was that addressed?
Yeah, one of the candidates, the former president, said there was a strong law enforcement present in Philadelphia and Detroit. That was not true. We quickly debunked it. To the extent that other people were upset, it was usually just because they couldn't get one of these stickers. We saw some of them sold on eBay, which I don't recommend. But at the same time, we also made these stickers available at our Secretary of State branch offices for the rest of this week. But
All right, Jocelyn Benson there. She's the Secretary of State in Michigan, talking about all those I voted stickers and how the voting has gone there in Michigan as well. But in the meantime here, let's step away from Secretary Benson. We do have one of these candidates conceding the race there. Let's go out to Maryland. Former Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, losing this Senate race to Democrat Angela Alsobrooks there. Let's watch.
Who inspired me to get into this race, and my entire family. Give them a big round of applause. I stepped up to run because I was concerned about what kind of a future we would be leaving for all of our kids and grandkids. And for me, the greatest title wasn't governor or senator, it's dad and pop-pop. I also want to thank our incredible campaign staff. Please give them a round of applause. They did an amazing job. And the thousands of volunteers all across the state who worked their butts off. You know, some campaigns drag on for years, but this one was a 9-month sprint. We ran full speed from day one, from early mornings and late nights to every corner of the state, knocking on doors, making calls and meeting voters from Oakland to Ocean City and everywhere in between. And we built a broad coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and we brought together first responders, police, veterans, longshoremen, teachers, small business owners, young people and retirees, and hardworking families all across the state. This was truly a grassroots campaign. And most of all, I want to thank my fellow Marylanders, especially all those in deep blue Maryland who were willing to put country over party and split their tickets. If the pundits and the politicians were more like the good and decent people that I meet every day on the campaign trail, our country would be so much better off. We got into this race for the right reasons, to fix the broken politics and to put our country on the right track. And we ran the kind of campaign that represents what politics can be and what it should be. Driven by the people, not the party bosses, and focused on the issues that actually matter to families all across Maryland. From day one, this was the only campaign in America that reached out to Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike, because that's what it's going to take to solve the serious problems we face. Americans today are thoroughly convinced that we're hopelessly divided, that Washington is completely dysfunctional and that our entire political system is fundamentally broken. The voices of the exhausted majority are ignored in deference to the demands of the loudest and angriest few who seem hell-bent on tearing America apart. No matter what happens in this election, we as a country must move beyond talking only with those we agree with, and we need to stop dismissing or even hating those we disagree with. We have got to find a way to come together, to listen, and to believe in each other once again, because there really is far more that unites us than divides us. While tonight did not bring the outcome we had hoped for, we can all hold our heads high. I can tell you, we left it all on the field, and I'm so damn proud of the effort. Thank you all.
All right, there's Larry Hogan, former Maryland governor there, trying his hand at Senate politics, coming up short there in Maryland, losing to Democrat Angela Alsobrooks. Of course, Alsobrooks currently is an executive with Prince George's County there. And this seat stays blue. This is Ben Cardin's seat, longtime Democratic incumbent there. Ben Cardin opting not to seek re-election in Maryland. In the meantime here, we do want to get in some more race calls that we have right now as well. Let's move from Maryland to Massachusetts here, staying in the Senate. Elizabeth Warren fending off this Republican challenger in John Deaton. About 25% of estimated votes counted right now. The Associated Press calling the race there for Elizabeth Warren, the Democratic incumbent. She gets another 6 years in the upper chamber. In the meantime here on the presidential contest, on that level, we do have a race call. Remember, these states out west, Utah, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, polls just closed there 10 minutes ago, and we just got a quick race call there in Utah. Take a look at this. The Associated Press projecting Donald Trump will win Utah's 6 electoral votes there right now. Okay, let's stay out west right now. Let's move from Utah to Colorado there. Take a look at this. Colorado being called for Vice President Kamala Harris. You see there over Trump. 48% of estimated votes counted. Harris getting Colorado there. And you see that margin, 56 to 42, Colorado trending blue in the last really 3 cycles, if you think about it. So in the meantime here, let's take yet another quick commercial break. When we come back, more experts, more analysts, more reporters, more results, more race calls. Yes, it's still early. I'm Andrew Kraft. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have more of these candidates taking the stage at their respective election night watch parties and rallies. Want to focus our efforts right now on the Texas Senate race there. The Associated Press has not called this race yet. Other outlets have, though. For Ted Cruz, you see there 67% of estimated votes counted. You see the wide margin in the differential between Cruz and Allred. Cruz just stepped up at his election night watch party. Let's listen live.
And I believe and I hope and pray that Donald Trump will be reelected as president of the United States. I want to say thank you, number one, to my extraordinary wife, Heidi, my best friend in the world. Such an amazing partner on this magic carpet ride of life. And I want to say thank you to our two beautiful and amazing girls, Caroline and Catherine. You know, politics at times exacts a price on the family. And I want to say I am so grateful for their love and support, and you guys are amazing. Thank you. I also want to give a special shout out to Alexis Nungri. Alexis, thank you for your incredible courage speaking out for your precious Jocelyn, and your courage has made such a profound difference in this nation. We're going to. I also want to thank all the Democrats across Texas who crossed over and supported my campaign. Including especially Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Who has stood strong for prosecuting violent criminals. And I want to thank every Texan across our great state who has stood with us in this fight, who worked and who fought for Texas. I want to congratulate Colin Allred on a hard-fought campaign. And I want to say to all of those who didn't support me, you have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights. But tonight, the people of Texas have spoken. And their message rings clear as a bell across our great state. Texas will remain Texas. You know, the media were ready to write off Texas. And Chuck Schumer poured in more than $100 million to our state. Well, I want to say thank you, Chuck. And I hope we win a few more Senate seats tonight because you wasted so much money in Texas. They deployed every trick, every lie, and every Hollywood celebrity they could find. Chuck Schumer tried to buy this Senate seat like it was a piece of Manhattan real estate. But he learned what we've always known, that Texas isn't for sale. And Texans can't be bought. Amen. Over the last 2 years, I've traveled every corner of this state, from the Panhandle to the Valley, from deep East Texas to far in West Texas. We have traveled 9,094 miles, 53 rallies all over the state of Texas. I've worn out my boots, at times my voice, and certainly the patience of my incredible political team, who did an amazing job on this campaign, and I think is the very best team in all of politics. And what I found traveling the state of Texas was worth every single mile. Because everywhere I went, I found something that gives me profound hope. Common sense isn't dead. It is alive and well in Texas. Everywhere I went, I met Texans who share a simple dream: to keep their families safe, to keep their freedom secure, and to keep their Texas values strong. Tonight, we are witnessing incredible results, especially with Hispanics across the state of Texas.
All right, you've been listening there to Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican winning re-election there, speaking to a crowd full of his supporters there. And you can see there, some have called this race for Cruz, though the Associated Press has not. And that is what we rely on here. You see there the numbers, Cruz up on all red now, about over 10 points. And so we'll be waiting to see whether or not this race gets called sometime soon here. Let's take that full. We have it. So 68% of estimated votes counted there in this Senate race. Like I said, Cruz declaring victory there. We wait for the Associated Press, although some outlets have called this race for Cruz. In the meantime here, we do have some more race calls to get to. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here. Let's get to them right now. We want to focus our efforts on the presidential contest right now. Remember, some of these Western states, polls closed there at the top of the last hour. I'm talking about Montana. All right, so Trump getting Montana's 4 electoral votes there. And so this is not a shocker, not a surprise. Montana ruby red there, though the Senate race, I believe, is too close to call there between Tester and Sheehy. In the meantime, let's move from Montana now to Utah. Remember, we brought you the results in the presidential contest from Utah, Trump sweeping Utah there. But there was a Senate race we had our eyes on because, remember, this is the seat being vacated by current Republican Senator Mitt Romney. This was the race to replace Mitt Romney and Republican John Curtis, the current congressman right now there from Utah, winning this race, the Senate race in Utah, over his Democratic challenger there as well. So wanted to make sure we got some of those race calls in moving forward. In the meantime here, we do have some tweets. Want to put this up. This is from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Let's go back to Texas. You see there, he says, congratulations, Senator Ted Cruz, on your big win. Senator Cruz will continue to defend Texas values of freedom, liberty, and prosperity in the U.S. Senate. Working together, we'll keep Texas. Texas, you heard that common refrain there from Ted Cruz at his party. All right, in the meantime here, we do want to bring into the conversation my friend and colleague, Austin Westfall, in the Live Now newsroom, who we've been relying so heavily on for what to make of these race calls. He joins me also with some viewer engagement. We want to hear from the viewers tonight. Take a look at the lower left portion of your screen. About 800,000 of them are watching alongside us. But first, Austin.
We've been checking in with Christina throughout the evening as she's been traversing social media and seeing what's going on there. Let's ask you all who's watching. Let's ask you what's going on and what you're thinking about. We're asking you, and by the way, we'll say QR code right there on your screen. Andrew, if we can take that in full so that the people can point their smartphone camera at that QR code, it'll send you to a web page where you can vote on this poll. We've already had a couple of results come in. That's because some of you are looking at our website and you're voting on this before we even brought it to air. Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania. Those are the 7 key battlegrounds we've been following. The question is, which battleground state do you think will have the most impact on the presidential race? Right now, it appears with 51% of the vote, Pennsylvania is looking like it's taking the cake. But again, we've only gotten a few dozen, I believe, answers to this poll so far. So if you want, you can either scan that QR code on your screen, or if we take it off the screen before you're able to do that, you can simply type in livenowfox.com/connect. livenowfox.com/connect. You can tell us which battleground state you think will have the most impact on the presidential race. We've been talking about this ad nauseum, Andrew. Pennsylvania is going to be the common denominator for both Harris and Trump's easiest path to the White House. Pennsylvania so far winning in our poll. Okay, so as you mentioned, let's bring up the map. This is what we're working with right now. We've got Harris with 112. We have Trump with 198. Trump is 72 electoral votes away from the magic number. We have had so many race calls in the last few minutes here. So we're seeing a lot of this dark red being shaded in. Most of these not necessarily a surprise. I want to focus on the battleground states, though. Let's start with Wisconsin, and let's zoom in. 48% of the votes in Wisconsin have been tallied, and so far, this is a tight one. Trump right now, 1 point above Harris, 49.8% versus 48.8%. That's with nearly half of those votes being tallied so far. Looks like Michigan is leaning blue right now. Only 21% of the votes called so far. Less than a quarter of the results have been tallied in Michigan. Of course, so much attention is going to be on the Detroit
but yeah, that's machine politics, and it works a little bit more. Precincts that take a while to count for whatever reason. You've got anomalies that happen in the counting process, all kinds of things. So people will be watching that one over the next couple of days for sure.
Okay, so AG, we have a live picture there at the Harris Walls watch party. You said there are indications of 2016 vibes, so to speak, when Hillary Clinton lost. Do you see any of that on the faces of some of these Harris Walls supporters here? Because I want to ask you this. The question going into the night was whether or not we would know a winner in the presidential contest tonight. Do you think we will, or will it take till tomorrow morning?
I think it's going to take a day or two before we have something where we can say somebody's going to be the winner. I just don't think that we're going to have enough of the count in tonight, especially in those blue wall states, to really figure it out. I think Arizona may take a little bit of time too. It looks a little close from what I'm seeing also. So, between those states, you've got, 55 electoral votes between the four? That's a lot of suspense. So, expecting a winner before you go to bed tonight, I think is a little bit unrealistic. But the trend right now is Donald Trump. It's looking good for him. But, you have to consider that the late votes, that the late counted vote, the mail vote, things like that, that is going to trend Democratic. And, so any margin that Trump has at, 10:41 Eastern time may not hold, when we wake up in the morning.
Let's talk about Detroit. I want to talk about Michigan. We talk so much about some of these southern states, and we've been talking about Pennsylvania. Let's talk about Michigan. And I'm going to just kind of zoom in on Detroit here, because that's one of the largest Arab American populations in the country. When we focus in and we go in on what is, and let's just make sure we get this correct here. We're focusing in on the area where Detroit is. So Wayne County is what we're talking about here, AG. So right now, Wayne County is showing that Trump is up 61% to 37.5%. We're talking about Trump having a commanding victory so far with 24% of the votes in. 24% may not sound like a lot, but what do you make of what we're seeing out of this county so far?
It really comes down to the precincts that are coming in, because a county in and of itself isn't necessarily the thing. There are precincts in the counties that will tell you what the real story is that's happening. And, when you're watching that precinct data being dumped in, that can move these totals. And we've got these margins as thin as they are in Michigan. You get 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 votes dumped in. And if they're D plus 80, that makes a remarkable difference in the narrative.
So we do have some race calls we do want to get to right now here on the presidential level. Let's go to Kansas right now, AG in Austin. So you see there Trump getting Kansas's 6 electoral votes, the Associated Press calling Kansas for former President Donald Trump here. Let's stay in the Midwest. We also have a race call there in the Hawkeye state of Iowa. Iowa's 6 electoral votes going to Donald Trump there over Harris, with 56% of estimated votes counted. Now, this is really interesting, because we got to dive into some of the numbers there in Iowa, because there was this poll that was put out over the weekend by Ann Seltzer. She's considered the gold standard there of polling mavens in Iowa, AG in Austin. She had Harris winning Iowa by 3 in her poll. She even considered her poll an outlier here, AG, but obviously we're not seeing that here. Trump getting the state, and it's a pretty sizable margin so far, more than half of votes counted.
Yeah, the Trump campaign said that, they tell people to look at the Emerson poll, which is more of a 10-point poll. The Seltzer poll, the methodology seemed really weird to me. And, this idea that there's this groundswell of women in this very conservative state that elected Kim Reynolds governor and all of that was moving over to Harris, it didn't make a lot of sense. But, when you look at polls, we know this. It's like it comes down to your sample size. It comes down to your random pick. So you got 600, 800, 1,000 people. Not all those people are created equal. So, it looks like a real sampling error from Selzer, a back to the drawing board moment. But, every presidential race has really wild polls. And this just happened to be one of them. And it raised questions about Iowa, but I don't think those questions were legitimate. Obviously, voters did what we expected them to do before this election, leaving aside that Selzer poll.
Yeah. So, AG, as I zoom in on the map here, we're starting to see that almost every single battleground, in fact, every single battleground that has results, save for Nevada, which we do not have results in for yet, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. None of them have been called in Trump's favor yet. All of them so far are, they're light red. They are leaning red right now as Trump is ahead in these races. What does that mean? We saw so many discussions out there saying that this race would be as close as it possibly could be. Is this something that's fascinating you as we're seeing this night progress? I mean, Georgia, North Carolina, we have over 80% of the vote tallied. Over 60% of the vote has been tallied in Pennsylvania. Michigan has just about a quarter of the votes tallied and over 50% of the votes tallied in Wisconsin, as well as half the votes tallied in Arizona. Out of those 6 battlegrounds, AG, what's standing out to you?
I mean, to me, it really is the trend. And you have to ask yourself right now, who would rather be, Trump or Harris? And, Trump, basically his strategy of going all over the place, campaigning everywhere, taking all kinds of questions, even from adversarial media, it seems to have paid off. And, I think voters are responding to the authenticity, to the viscerality of the Trump campaign, to the approach, and to the central question, are you better off 4 years ago? Trump weaved that question in over and over again in his closing arguments. And, many of these voters in these states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and so on, they looked at their pocketbooks, their bank balances, their credit cards, and they said, no, we're not better. And, I think Harris not doing press conferences, kind of doing these parachuting in, doing these scripted rallies, I don't think that helped her. I think voters really wanted a connection, especially after the 2020 pandemic election where, Joe Biden basically campaigned from his basement. Harris did a version of that. And the voters seem to be rewarding Donald Trump here.
So, AG, let's just transition briefly here to some of these Senate contests and some of these Western battlegrounds as well here. We're getting results in on the Arizona Senate race. Let's take this. Ruben Gallego up over Lake 53-46 right now with 49% of estimated votes counted. If we can also bring up the Montana Senate race too between Sheehy and Tester, just so we can get a good lowdown of where that race stands at the moment. Let's take that. There you see Sheehy up 56 over Tester's 42 there with about 5% of estimated votes counted. So Montana still has a kind of long way to go there. But these are the Senate races to watch still now that we are moving our way westward across the country, though. Some of the other races, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, those Senate seats, they're still in the mix. They haven't been called yet, at least by the Associated Press, AG.
Yeah, and, Republicans need to flip a couple of these. And even if you go back to 2022, they're saying that 24 would be their year for the Senate. And they've got a lot of opportunities. And I think as Trump rises or falls, so too do the Senate candidates. If you look at the state polling that came out in the various swing states where you had Senate races, the candidates run a couple points behind Trump. So if Trump can win these states by 2 or 3 points, that's very good for a Dave McCormick or Eric Hovde or somebody like that. I think if you look at Montana, I think, Trump's strength is going to lift Sheehy in that race. I don't think Kari Lake has a shot per se. The polls I saw of Arizona had a lot of split ticket between Trump and Gallego. But, overall, if Republicans can pick off a couple of these Democratic seats, then it's a very good night because they probably will take the House also. So you can see a unified Republican Washington, D.C. next year, and Donald Trump would be able to enact a lot of his policy agenda that he was thwarted, from doing during his first term if he's elected.
So, AG, if we can come back onto my screen here, I want to just show the Senate map. The balance of power is behind me here, and this is giving us a look at how this thing is shaping out. So right now, and obviously you need 50 seats in order to have control of the Senate if the president is Donald Trump, because that would mean that J.D. Vance would be the tiebreaker. That would give Republicans control. That would mean they would only need 50. Now, if they want control, regardless of who wins the presidency, they would need 51. Let's tease this out, AG. There are quite a few competitive Senate races around the country: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. As you mentioned, it's not as competitive in Arizona as it once was. Montana, we are seeing that John Tester has a steep uphill battle. Is there really any path to the Democrats maintaining control in the upper chamber at this point?
Not with the way this map is going. It's going to be very difficult. And I think you would need for the Senate candidates to really outperform Harris in state after state. My guess right now is 52, 53 Republican seats. And that's really what you want if you're the Republicans, because, it's very hard to maintain a unified caucus in the House or the Senate. So you want that margin to be a couple points higher than just a 50-50 split with Vance casting a bunch of tie-breaking votes. It's really early to tell with these Senate races, but I'm less confident in those than I am in Trump right now. But, I really do think Trump is the rising tide that will lift some of these Senate candidates up.
Okay, so in the meantime, AG Gankarski with the New York Post, we're going to have to leave it at that. We do appreciate it. We are nearing the top of the hour. Austin Westfall here in the Live Now newsroom with me. But in the meantime, though, speaking of some of these Senate races, I want to put up some of the results. Let's go back to Virginia right now. Take a look at this. Democratic incumbent Tim Kaine there leading over his Republican challenger, Hung Kao. You see there. We also have Tim Kaine speaking live right now to his rally group of supporters. Let's listen.
Embody, and by the progress that you've demonstrated. So it's going to be a long night. We're going to have, however all these results go outside Virginia, we're going to have a lot of work to do. We're going to have a lot of work to do to promote more peace in the world. We're going to have a lot of work to do to create this economy that is not just for a few, but for the many, and expand healthcare options and protect reproductive freedom and fight gun violence and battle for a cleaner environment. And there's so much work to do. But we've shown in Virginia that if we link arms, we can walk side by side. We can andar con la gente. We can walk side by side with people and make progress. So thank you so much for putting your faith in me. And you may or may not, over the course of the next 6 years, agree or disagree with this or that, but I won't embarrass you. I won't let you down. I won't cause you to lose a moment of sleep. And we will keep moving Virginia and this country forward. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And then watch TV very late, and we're gonna go win, right? We're gonna go win. Yeah.
All right, you're just listening in there to Tim Kaine wrapping up some of the speaking to reporters. You can see there the 52-48 margin right now, not officially called by the AP, but a happy crowd on the hand there in that state of Virginia. All right, we're following it all here on Live Now from Fox. A change of anchor. I'm Andy Mack now in the desk, supplanting Andrew Kraft after a great election night for him, covering all the latest. All right, let's continue on. Let's line away for a quick 2-minute break. We have more polls closing here at the top of the hour as it gets closer to 8 o'clock Pacific time. We'll be right back. right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox here on this election night. Thank you so much for joining us. Some 900,000 people tuning in across all of our streaming platforms. So we appreciate you joining us as we're approaching the top of the hour. 8 o'clock on the West Coast is nearing very closely right now. Let's continue on. I do want to put up just some of these Live Now looks, including at Howard University, the Kamala Harris watch party getting going. The vibes there still very high as well, despite what we're seeing in the polls right now, and also in West Palm Beach, Florida, a live look there with all the American flags. Plenty of people excited for this as we're soon to have polls close in California, Oregon, and Washington. And let's continue on. Let's bring in again my colleague here, Austin Westfall, to discuss the latest of what we're seeing from this on the West Coast. Austin, thank you so much for joining us. So what are we looking at now, and what do we expect here as polls close in just a matter of minutes on the West Coast?
Good to be with you, Andy Mack, and props to our colleague Andrew Kraft for a 5-hour-long marathon, manning the controls there. Let's get into the maps. So here's what we're talking about. We're going to be watching some of these West Coast states now. At this point, polls are going to be closing in, and it looks like we had a misstep there, but polls are going to be closing in states like California, Oregon, and Washington at the top of the hour. We do, of course, unless something completely surprising happens, we do expect that those 3 states will fall in the blue category. Now, what's going to be interesting, though, about these states is in the House. We haven't really been checking in on the balance of power in the House so far. The magic number is 218, Andy Mack. Right now, the Republicans have secured 152 of those seats, Democrats 98. Why am I talking about this on the West Coast? That's because there are tons of toss-up races all along this coast. So many of them in California. There's one specifically in southwestern Washington. That's going to be a particularly close one. Bend, Oregon has a close toss-up race. California's Central Valley, parts of Southern California, there's 5 House seats in California alone, currently owned by the GOP, but they're considered to be complete toss-up races. That's why it's been, as the weeks have developed, it's been much tougher for pundits to forecast who may control the House. There are so many tight races. And another thing to mention about this, Andy Mack, is that not only are these going to be super tight, but if they're as tight as they have been in years past, it could be so close that it could take days, if not over a week, to get some of these things done. That's the House.
A lot to get to with that. And let's talk about the Senate seat in California, as we're expecting that one to potentially close with Adam Schiff, the Democrat there, going up against Republican Steve Garvey. What do we make of this, and what is kind of the outlook on this in the Senate, and how does it the balance of power factor in all of this in California?
So ultimately, as far as the question of balance of power goes, we don't expect California to make any seismic shifts with the balance of power. We don't consider this race to be a toss-up like we do in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, states of that nature. California is an interesting one, as you can see. That might be a familiar name to some people. Steve Garvey, he was a first baseman. He played for the Dodgers. He played for the Padres in mostly the 70s and the 80s. He is running as a Republican against Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff led the charge on the impeachment process during Trump's first impeachment. As soon as polls close, we may get an early call in this race. Of course, any statewide race in California would be expected to fall blue, but no results from the Associated Press as of right now. And it looks like the clock just hit 8 p.m. on the West Coast. So polls closing, we should start to see some color, Andy Mack, in some of these states here shortly.
Yeah, and then the colors will start lighting up any minute now, as you mentioned, just the 8 o'clock hour there, as we're continuing to follow it on the West Coast as we're moving east to west.
And I'll mention, it just happened right now, just as we were speaking. So Washington, and there we go. So we're seeing some of these Senate races. Washington, as soon as the polls close, and this is just how reliably blue these states are. I'm going to just guess 0, yes, there's zeros on these. There's probably zeros on California as well. That's because the AP has such confidence in these states. As soon as results start coming in, they're going to be so overwhelmingly blue that they feel comfortable calling these races as soon as the results start coming through. So Adam Schiff, going to be the senator in California for 6 years. and it appears there as Washington as well. We're going to see so no numbers there as well, but still, Maria Cantwell going to be starting off her 6-year Senate tenure in the state of Washington, Andy.
All right, very, very interesting. West Coast, we're following it very closely. Also, we're going to check back in with you over the course of the evening as we've had over the last several hours as well, but we appreciate your time. Let's get out to more different conversations here as we're hearing now west to east, as I do want to put up just this, one of the most recent calls there in Idaho being called for the president, Donald Trump as well. So I do want to put up just this, those 4 electoral votes going for Donald Trump in Idaho. 4 electoral votes is kind of the balance of power as we talk about all those electoral votes being cast up. So we're hearing different ones about Nebraska. You know about the split one there with that, but also in Maine, we're talking about. All right, and we're also getting more about Washington as well. So let's continue to follow the latest here. As you can see, just the excitement within this watch party there in West Palm Beach in Florida at this watch party as they maybe see some of these results come in themselves, see the excitement of there as instead on the other side in the watch party at Howard University, it is Kamala Harris eventually getting the decision, 12 electoral votes in her favor going for the Vice President Kamala Harris on the West Coast. As you did hear from Austin Westfall, those going blue very, very quickly. The blue for Washington, we just see it go blue for Oregon. Let's bring in Austin one more time here as we're getting this about this. What do we make of this decision? And give me a breakdown of this here, Austin.
Yeah, just like the Senate, just like we were just talking about, as soon as the polls closed, the AP feels confident enough to call these Western states in favor of Harris. California has the most electoral votes in the country. We're talking about 54 votes coming from California alone. Washington is going to have 12 electoral votes. Oregon not being called yet. It's likely blue. Let's go in and let's see what we're working with here. It looks like Harris is up by just over 21%. That's with 44% of the votes counted. It looks like the AP not feeling quite as confident as they are in Washington and California about Oregon, but nonetheless, Harris with a dominant lead in Oregon as well. So what does that say for the electoral count at large? Now that California's huge swath of votes has been added, that jumps Harris up to 179. Trump at 214. That means Trump is 56 votes away from claiming the presidency. Harris looks like she is roughly 91 votes away from the presidency. While we're at it, Andy, let's look at the battlegrounds again. Let's just do a swing through all the states that very well could make or break this race. Wisconsin. Now we're at 60% of the votes tabulated. Trump appearing to have just over a 2% lead in Wisconsin. Neighboring Michigan. Michigan was leaning blue not too long ago. Now it looks like it's leaning red, and Trump is up by over 4%. That's with 28% of the votes counted. So that is and we just saw it update a little bit. It looks like Trump might have gained a little bit of ground slightly there. 28, just over 1/4 of the votes counted in Michigan. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes at stake. This one was a tight one for quite some time. And now it looks like as more and more votes are tabulated, we're nearing 3/4 of the votes being tabulated. 70% of the votes in Pennsylvania have been tallied. And right now, former President Trump has just over a 3% lead over the vice president. That's a major state right there. And that's a lead that Trump has with only 30% of the vote left that Harris can make up. North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. Again, the AP has not called any of these battleground states yet, but 87% of the vote has been tabulated in North Carolina. Trump has just under a 3% lead over the vice president. Let's bring you out to Georgia, where we're seeing 90% of the vote tallied, and Trump, he's got a 3-point lead above the vice president. Let's head out west. Nevada, not reporting anything in as far as the Associated Press is telling us so far. That's the one battleground we haven't heard from yet. But Arizona, still at exactly the point it was the last time we checked on it. Exactly 50% of the vote tallied right now. Trump with a 0.2 of a point lead over Harris, Andy.
All right, that is very, very interesting. A good breakdown here as we enter a new hour just to get everyone up to speed on those 7 key battleground states. All right, Austin, we're going to be checking back in with you in just a little bit, but I do want to give you that roundup of some of what we're looking at in some of those states along the West Coast, including in Arizona, including in California, Washington, and Oregon. I do want to just put these up, a full roundup of what we saw on the West Coast. This one in California being called for Kamala Harris in terms of this, and that 54 big electoral votes for her, the largest state in terms of that. Also in Washington as well, 12 electoral votes going to Kamala Harris, and then also in Oregon as well going for Kamala Harris. And I also want to talk now about California as we're learning that information about the Senate, a key race with Dianne Feinstein's seat being open, the late Dianne Feinstein, as this one going for Adam Schiff over Steve Garvey, the former Dodger, the former Padre. Adam Schiff moving Chambers from the House to the Senate as he takes over that seat. So big news in terms of the Senate as the Democrats, they keep that seat blue. We'll talk more about the balance of power and everything to do with it. But let's continue on. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. We'll get you more live pictures, different speeches. We're expecting to hear from Adam Schiff, likely Steve Garvey, within the hour, just based on the fact that this was called so quickly after polls closed there in that state. We'll have much more here on Live Now from Fox. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox on election night, just past 11 o'clock on the East Coast, as we continue to follow the latest in terms of the balance of power and the race for the White House. And I do want to talk now about the Senate race in Ohio. No call as of yet, but Bernie Moreno leading in a big way over the 3-term incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown, some 300,000 votes, just under 300,000 votes, a lead for Bernie Moreno. We do see him speaking to the crowd of supporters in Westlake, Ohio. Let's take you out to this right here on Live Now from Fox.
Republican leadership. With President Trump and J.D. Vance in the White House, we are going to advance an agenda that is an American agenda. An agenda that says we are pro-immigration, but not pro-invasion. We're going to make certain that the people who come to this country are invited here like I was, like my family was, on our terms. We're going to make this country an energy-dominant nation so that my kids do not grow up in a country where we ever rely on a foreign nation for energy ever again. And we have that energy right here in Ohio. That means coal. That means natural gas. It means oil. And it means nuclear. And in terms of EV mandates, they need to be gone first thing in January. And we're going to make certain that we tell California, you don't get to dictate to the whole country what our emission standards are. We're going to dictate that at the federal level. We're going to allow consumers to pick the kind of car they want. Look, the other piece that I want to talk about is what President Trump has brought to this country, which is peace and stability around the world. America will be a leader in the world, will always be a leader in the world. American leadership has made the planet safer, more prosperous, and more secure than at any point in human history. But it means that we ensure peace through strength. The weakness of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is rejected. And I know that from whether it's in Jerusalem or Kiev or anywhere else on earth or Taiwan, they're cheering this election because they know American strength will ensure peace around the world. And if you're a police officer in this country, just know you have a senator in me and a Republican Party that will always have your back. And we got rid of Chuck Schumer tonight, but pretty soon we're going to get rid of another couple people that need to be gone. First among them, Randy Weingarten should start packing her bags. Because what we need in this country is school choice for all Americans. And then as I look at my children, I've blessed with 4 kids. And by the way, can we give my wife an amazing round of applause, please? Thank you, Bridget. Bridget. Look, we need to make certain that we honor teachers, They're doing great work in every corner.
You're just listening in there as they were talking with Bernie Moreno, talking in very excited terms, optimistic terms, although the AP has yet to call that race in his favor. It is looking to be a margin that continues to grow for Moreno over Sherrod Brown, the 3-term incumbent Democrat there in that state of Ohio, as this one will flip from blue to red likely as soon as that's called. But that is what we're following right now as they moved off the shot. But we do have another shot here on Live Now from Fox on the election night in Arizona, another key battleground state of what we're following here in Arizona. I want to put up this post from Ruben Gallego, the Democrat from Arizona, saying, shout out to poll workers across Arizona who show up early, stay late, and keep our democracy running smoothly. Your dedication to every single vote is a testament to our state's strength. Let's take you out to the speech from him to supporters in Arizona. Let's listen into this live.
I ever owned that my Uncle Al gave, who could not be here today. He gave it to me because when I went to college, I couldn't afford to buy a new suit. So he gave me one of his. When I got to college, I saw all the kids were happy because they were just happy to be there, happy to be at Harvard. I was happy because I finally got a bed. In college, one of my beds was cleaning the bathrooms of fellow Harvard students, scrubbing the toilets of the kids I had to see the next day. But I did it all proudly, because I believed that if I worked hard and followed the rules, even a poor kid would succeed in America. That's America. Because of that, I decided I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to serve my country, the country that gave my family a chance to live the American dream, the greatest country in the world. So I enlisted in the infantry of the United States Marine Corps. I know there's some out there. I had the honor of fighting alongside my brothers in Iraq in Lima Company 325, assigned to Al-Anbar, Iraq. They called us Lucky Lima at first, but eventually our luck ran out. Our company saw some of the hardest days of the war. And those were tough days, but the fight for my brothers was always worth it. And so is this fight for Arizona. We had a mantra on this campaign. Go go everywhere and talk to everyone, and that's exactly what we did. We didn't take one vote for granted. For many candidates, Latinos and Native American voters are the afterthought, but they were part of our outreach from day one, and we worked to earn every vote. And we didn't write off our Republican brothers and sisters either. For 22 months, I've traveled all around this state. The thing I learned is that we have so much in common. Because whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, we all want the same thing, a better life for our kids, and to give our kids a better future. It's just that simple. And that's exactly why I'm here. I believe in the American dream. And I want everyone else to have the same opportunity to make it that I had. I'm here tonight because I believe women should also be able to make their own decisions about their own bodies. I'm here because costs are still too high. And I understand how hard it is to work just to bring home enough to pay the bills, to pay the rent, and maybe, just maybe, save up a little. I understand the dignity of work, of trying to put 40, 60, 80 hours together to try and make a life for your kids. But there are too many people in Washington, D.C. who don't understand that kind of hard work and who don't actually respect that work. They don't understand what it means to actually struggle every day and still believe the next day is going to be better. Look, it looks like this race won't be called tonight. But one result is already coming through and clear. We fought for Arizona. Because of that, we are voting so well. Even though our race isn't quite over yet, I still want to thank all Arizonans who supported me, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. And to those who didn't, I want you to know that regardless of who you voted for today, I will stand up and fight for you. As hard as I fought to get out of poverty, as hard as I fight now for my family, as hard as I fought in the Marine Corps, I will be fighting for you in Washington, D.C. To my family, my mom, my sisters, my aunts, my cousins, and they're all here. We're a big Latino family. I will always have your back, because you always had my back. And to Sydney, Michael, Isla, who always gave me a reason to fight, I will keep fighting. To my Lima Company Marines, the men I patrol with in Iraq, the men I went to the hardest days of war with, and came back to a country that had forgotten us. John, Andy, and Justin, who are here tonight. I love you, brothers. Semper Fi, and I always have your back. To my campaign team, to all the volunteers and our supporters, to the unions and the community groups who stood in front lines us the whole time, thank you. So for the veterans out there suffering from PTSD, for the single moms working 2 jobs and raising 3 kids, for the dads who have to miss that bedtime with their kids to work that overnight shift, and for the kid sleeping on the floor tonight in Arizona, dreaming of a better future, this is for you. Gracias, Arizona.
You were just listening in there to Ruben Gallego talking to a crowd of supporters, noting that it would likely not be called tonight just based on the protocols in place in that state, but a very confident, optimistic person there speaking at that rally there in Arizona. I do want to put up just the number of votes, the sizable margin he leads over Kari Lake at this point. Some 7-point lead right now. So no call as of tonight. He admitted that such, but a sizable lead for him this evening. But we do want to get you out to some calls in terms of the race for the White House in some very key battleground states. This one in North Carolina going in favor of Trump as Trump takes the key battleground state of North Carolina, 50% to 48%. just over 100,000 votes as Trump, the AP calling this almost 90% of the votes tallied at this point. Another battleground state not called at this point, but in favor of the former president in a significant way, 51% to 48.3% as well. And we want to put up a post from our Fox 5 team. Eric Perry saying, breaking, Donald Trump has an insurmountable lead with a number of votes outstanding. That a quote from the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, during a late night briefing. So some big news. And let's continue on. Let's bring in my colleague right now, Austin Westfall, to discuss what this means moving forward, because this is a big development in terms of the race for this White House. Austin, North Carolina going for the former President Donald Trump, and Raffensperger saying an insurmountable lead for Trump in Georgia. How pivotal is this moment for Trump?
Raffensperger saying that is very important. The AP has not officially called the race yet, so we can't officially call it ourselves here. A live look at the Trump watch party where we've been watching. There's been a lot of smiling faces. We have been keeping an eye on both of these watch parties. Here's how the map is looking now that we're getting some of these pertinent race calls in. This is the first battleground state that's officially been called. That puts Donald Trump away from the presidency. Harris still at 179. Let's take a look. North Carolina, solidly red at this point. We've been saying all night, Trump's easiest path to victory is North Carolina, which he has now. Georgia, which with 90% of the votes in, he has almost a 3-point lead. So, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. So, if he gets these 3 states and every other state falls the way we expect it to, that means that former President Trump will become president again. The only time that's ever happened before was Grover Cleveland. He was the 22nd and 24th president of the United States. So, North Carolina getting called. I'm watching Pennsylvania closely now. I'm watching Georgia closely now. Again, 9/10 of all the votes have been counted in Georgia. He's got almost 3 points up. Pennsylvania, just over 3/4 of the vote now tallied. Trump has, and right now we're looking at just about a 3-point lead out of PA as well. So Trump has leads in 2 absolutely crucial states. And I'm not even mentioning the fact that he has leads right now in Wisconsin, 66% of the votes in. Right now, Trump has about a 3-point advantage there. Michigan, fewer of those votes counted. About a third of them are in so far. But Donald Trump right now with a sizable lead over Kamala Harris. That one looking like it's just over a 6-point advantage. We go over to Arizona. It's very possible we don't hear any more results in from them for the rest of the night. They've been stuck at 50%. Nonetheless, that's at a dead tie right now. It's very possible, Andy, the way this is playing out, though, we might not need to worry about Arizona. Right. We're going to keep an eye specifically right now on Georgia and PA, now that North Carolina's been called.
There's a very good breakdown of all of the come. And of course, North Carolina, Georgia, insurmountable leads in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan might be too close to call at this point, just based on the margin there. All right, Austin, we're going to check back in with you in just a little bit, but let's give you some live now looks inside of some of these watch parties there in West Palm Beach, Florida. You can see the excitement growing, building in that room. As they are monitoring this in real time, as we are as well. Also there in Washington, D.C. at the Kamala HQ, the headquarters on the campus of Howard University, her alma mater. We're monitoring it all very, very closely. Also the race for the White House, other props coming up. We're going to have more on some of the down ballot races, some of those measures, amendments in place and what they mean across this country. We'll have that and much more here on Live Now from Fox after this.
Oh my goodness.
All right, we'll get back in here to our election night coverage on Live Now from Fox. I'm the host, Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to give you a couple Live Now looks there in Washington, D.C. at the Kamala Harris watch party taking place on the campus of Howard University, and also in West Palm Beach, Florida. You can see just some of the excitement in the eyes of some of these viewers just approaching midnight on the East Coast. All right, we're also monitoring the latest inside some of these different polling locations, some of these tabulation centers, including in Gwinnett County in Georgia, as we're hearing from Brad Raffensperger talking about potentially an insurmountable lead for the former President Donald Trump. But they will continue on late into the night there. All right, let's talk more about the race for the White House, but other amendments, proposals on the table in different states. Let's bring in right now my colleague, Christina Evans. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Break it all down for me. What are we seeing in some of these votes and some of these props around the country?
Absolutely, Andy Mack. So again, right now in the Live Now Social Center, I want to show you what things are looking like from my vantage point. We're keeping up with some of those storylines that you may not see on the regular news. This is some stuff that we're seeing on social media. And when it comes to social media, you have to talk about some of those conversations that pertain to abortion. Let's go ahead and take a look here on the screen. You can see this race call for the Associated Press. Voters in Maryland did accept a ballot measure to enshrine protection for abortion in the state's constitution. Now, this is a big deal because Marylanders did vote to protect reproductive rights. Abortion is already legal there in the state, but by approving the amendment, voters have made it extremely difficult for lawmakers in the future to pass a law that could limit reproductive care without violating the state constitution. Now, we all know that with some of these younger voters, again, with Gen Z and other places, abortion has been a huge measure that they have been following. I want to show you another one that we have. Here is a post on X from Fox 5 New York. New York voters also passed Proposition 1 in their state. This meant that the amendment is designed to protect abortion rights and other civil liberties that will now be enshrined as well in the state's constitution. This is all according to the Associated Press. Some of this news coming out. The final state that I want to hit on right now when it pertains to abortion, voters in Colorado have also approved a constitutional amendment to enshrine abortion protection there in their state as well. So it's important here for Colorado. This measure did win the necessary 55% of the vote to pass, and it is already a regional hub as well for abortion access in that part of the country, because many folks who do end up traveling there if abortion is banned in their state. So again, on social media, we've been seeing reactions to this storyline as folks are finding out if their state will enshrine abortion protection in the Constitution. Happening now, we know, in 3 states, New York, Maryland, and Colorado. But we are continuing to track stories just like this on our social media pages. Make sure you follow us on Live Now Fox. It's on all platforms, including TikTok, where we have been continuing to keep you updated with some of the other storylines that we're following and seeing there online.
All right. Thank you so much, Christina. So important for so many people. And we're glad you shined the light on some of these propositions as well. We appreciate your time doing a great job back there in the social media center.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. Let's continue on and let's give you a wrap up of some of what we're seeing in terms of some of those propositions. The Amendment 79 in Colorado in favor, yes, the right to abortion. So we're following it very, very closely. A significant portion, over 1.3 million voting in favor of that. Also in New York in Proposal 1, talking about equal protection. 3 million people cast the ballot, some 63 to 37 in favor of that. And also the right to abortion in Maryland. Coming back to that question one more time. Question 1 for it is almost 2 million people casting their ballot, a significant margin in terms of this there in Maryland. All right, so we're following the latest here on Live Now from Fox in terms of all of this, the race for the White House and much, much more. I do want to talk about another West Coast state that was recently called for Vice President Kamala Harris. Right here, you can see Oregon going in favor of her. So a blue West Coast, not unusual, not surprising as well, but Harris being called there for Oregon. All right, let's continue on because we're talking about different tabulation centers, different votes being tallied across the country. We're having Live Now looks inside of different locations. This one, I believe, in Harris County, Texas. Let's bring in right now to the conversation for more on it. We want to bring in Chris Mann, the director at the Center for Election Innovation and Research. Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox on this election night. It feels like we're having a pretty smooth election night. What is your focus? What are you seeing around the country in terms of the tabulation, in terms of these votes being counted?
I think we've had a remarkably smooth election day and all the period up to it, with early voting going remarkably well. We haven't really seen any problems, looking very carefully around the country for any potential issues. The only things we've seen are the kinds of things that we expect. We had a polling place open late in Maricopa County, Arizona, because the person who was supposed to unlock the door forgot the key in the morning. We had a few places around the country where they had technology glitches in the morning, and that led to lines, but all of those were quickly resolved. Of course, we have had some extraordinarily unusual events. The bomb threats that the FBI has identified as coming from foreign actors, very likely from Russia, that disrupted voting in Georgia and led to polling place delays. There were similar threats made via social media in other states that were quickly dismissed and didn't interrupt voting. And as we get into the counting, things have gone remarkably smoothly. Probably the most high-profile event happened in Milwaukee, where they had to start over with counting. It was clearly a mistake, but in my opinion, they handled it exactly right. They discovered the mistake and they were transparent about it. They talked to the Republicans, they talked to the Democrats, and they decided to start over so that everybody knew the process worked from beginning to end.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania. So right now, as we look at the electoral map, we're focusing on two states that haven't been called on the East Coast right now. We're looking at specifically Georgia, which has, I should say, Chris, 91% of the votes tabulated right now. Trump with just under a 3% lead in that state. Still 9% of the votes to be tallied. But really what I'm curious to ask you about is Pennsylvania. We still got 23% of the votes to be counted in Pennsylvania, and Donald Trump's lead appears to be increasing. How are votes tabulated in Pennsylvania? What's the rules? What's the procedures? And how quickly could they get their process done this morning?
It is going to take them a while. So the key thing to know about Pennsylvania is they are one of the few states that are not allowed to do anything with mail ballots until this morning, until Election Day. So they get those mail ballots. They can't check the voter signature. They can't check that information to make sure it's a valid ballot. They can't take it out of the envelope. They can't even begin the counting process. All of that checking to make sure that the ballot is valid is the longest part. It's the part we want people to be careful about. And so that's why it's going to take a while. They are going to be much better than 2020. There are fewer ballots, and they have made changes. But election officials, Democrats and Republicans all across the state of Pennsylvania, asked the legislature to allow them to start, like almost every other state does, a day or several days before Election Day, before today. And that didn't happen. The legislature didn't make that change. So they're going to be counting all the way through the night. Through tomorrow, possibly into Thursday. Different folks are estimating when they'll be done at different times. But they started way behind everybody, so they're playing catch up. Election officials all over that state are going as fast as they can, but it's going to take them a while.
All right, that is very good to know, and good protocols in place to make sure that all these votes are counted. I do want to go back to what you mentioned about what was happening in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, those 30,000 votes that needed to be counted once more just due to a snafu, as one of the city commissioners talking about it earlier on today. And I do want to ask you just about the transparency, because we did see Senator Ron Johnson come down to that facility as well. How important is that to make sure that people are aware of what's going on? A human error can happen, but they can remedy it very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, election officials spend a lot of time preparing for this, but we're talking about thousands of people, tens of thousands of people running elections, doing the counting. They don't do this all the time. Mistakes are going to happen. When they found that mistake and being totally transparent about it, look, you can't undo a mistake, but mistakes happen in life. We all know that. So that transparency to stop, go back to the beginning, check all the machines, seal everything up, and then start over again so that there aren't any questions about those ballots. Best thing to do.
So, Chris, I got to ask you, misinformation has become a staple somewhat as we've been tracking this election and how the votes are tabulated. What do you want people to know about misinformation? And what do you want people to know about some of the common misconceptions people have about how these votes are tallied?
So the first thing to remember is that the reason it's taking a while is that elections are close, right? States that are not close for presidency or other races that are not close, you all can call that, decision desk can call that very quickly. We can know who's going to win. When it's going to be close, we got to wait longer. But the ballots are actually being counted faster than ever before using technology to do it accurately. Every state after election day, so we keep talking about these results, but these are unofficial results. Before they become official, they will be audited, they will be checked. In every state, they go through a rigorous process before those official results are certified so that we can trust that those final results are really the results that are out there. You know, in terms of misinformation, what I would say is if somebody's telling you something and it's really what you want to hear, be a little skeptical of it.
Oh, okay.
Well, that is a good advice for people moving forward. And my question is a little bit of a piggyback of what Austin just asked you as you're talking about disinformation, misinformation moving forward. What are you looking at over the next several days? Because some of these states like Pennsylvania, which could be the common denominator for the race for the White House, will be counting for tonight into tomorrow, potentially over the next several days. What are you looking at over the next several days? What are you focusing on?
The biggest thing that concerns me is actors out there, particularly foreign actors, that may be just trying to rile up anger on both sides and disrupt, you know, how we operate as Americans and our trust in this electoral process, in the political process. And so, you know, if something is out there and it's really getting you fired up, that's the most important place to take a step back and ask yourself, is this person just trying to make me angry? Is this social media post or wherever you're hearing it? Is this just where something that's trying to wind me up? And that's the most dangerous piece of misinformation over the next couple of days. This process, we knew what was going to happen. We've known for months that this is going to play out. Pennsylvania was going to take a long time. Wisconsin will take a little bit of time, not quite as long as Pennsylvania, probably, maybe a few other states. But be patient and don't fall for those folks who are just trying to rally you up.
In general, Chris, I got to ask you, does it seem like the process is moving quicker this time around compared to 2020? And is that because of all of those mail-in ballots 4 years ago?
It's moving quicker for a number of reasons. One, we're not in the middle of a pandemic, so election workers don't have to social distance and all those other things that got in the way of moving quickly. Election officials learn lesson from every election, so they have gotten better. They've changed their procedures. They got more people, trained them to do things a little quicker, a little faster, all of those things. But yeah, a big factor is that there are fewer mail ballots. They have those extra steps to process them, especially in those places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, where they don't get the head start of being able to do that before Election Day.
All right, very good. Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's glad, I think many people are, that it is going smooth here on Election Day, very critical election. I appreciate your time. We're continuing to follow the latest, but thanks again for joining us here on a busy day.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue on covering all the latest here on Live Now from Fox on this election day. As we do want to get to more race calls in terms of the race, the push for the White House. Another one out of New Mexico in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, 52-46. The check mark next to her name, those 5 electoral votes going to her. And I also want to talk about Oregon one more time. Harris getting that state as well, 8 electoral votes for her over the former President Donald Trump. All right, we're also monitoring, like we've talked about time and time again, that balance of power in the Senate. We do have a new live pick right up now in Pennsylvania of this in terms of a watch party for Dave McCormick, the Republican in that state. And I do want to put up just this, a post of what's coming up in terms of this race in Pennsylvania over incumbent Bob Casey. It is a very tight margin, but a 2-point lead right now at this point for Dave McCormick. The AP has not called it yet, but it is getting closer to the finish line. 80% of the votes have been counted at this point, 2.7 million to 2.6 million in terms of that. All right, we're following all the latest here on this on Live Now from Fox. Let's line away for another quick 2-minute break. All right, welcome back to Year 2 Live now for Fox here on this election night. I'm the host, Andy Mack. We appreciate you joining us as we approach midnight on the East Coast as we are getting closer and closer in terms of that call for the White House. I do want to put up just this, another state going in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, this being Virginia right now. The AP calling this in favor of her, 51% to 47%. As you can see, the electoral amounts on that left side portion of your screen, the 270 needed to win, 230 right now in favor of the former President Donald Trump, 205. It's going to be a very, very close one in terms of this. So we're following that very, very closely. I do want to give you another race call, a call that we've really already seen the speaker for this, the senator out of Texas, Ted Cruz, the AP finally calling this one. It is a sizable margin right now at this point, 54% to 44%, some 5.25 million votes for Ted Cruz in that state. We've already seen him speak to supporters there on the ground in that state. So I just wanted to give you an update on what we're seeing in terms of that state in Texas. But we're following all the latest here on this on Live Now from Fox. Let's continue. Let's bring in my colleague Austin Westfall, because we did see Ted Cruz being called, but Virginia going for Harris, and we're expecting to hear from Dave McCormick potentially in a little bit. We do have a live picture of that. Give me a breakdown of what we're seeing in terms of the Electoral College. What are we looking at right now, Austin?
So let's start off, before we get to the Electoral College, let's start off with the Senate map, because Texas going to Cruz, that is going to matter in the grand scheme of things. As things sit right now, Republicans have 49 out of the 50 seats that they need in order to get a split in the Senate. If they get 50-50, then that means that the vice president would be the tiebreaker. That means if J.D. Vance becomes the vice president, he would give the edge to the Republicans in the Senate. If Tim Walz becomes the vice president, that means the Democrats would become the party in power in the Senate. But right now, there are so many, Andy, so many of these blue seats that are competitive. They only need one more. They only need one more. The Republicans need one more seat to win in order to get to what they need to get to. So, and what we'll say here is Republicans do have 50. So yes, if they win the presidency, what that's going to mean is that they are going to control the Senate. If they get one more, that's going to confirm the fact that they've gotten the Senate. So
yeah. Let me cut you off real quick, because that was a great breakdown. But we do see Colin Allred now at the microphone after Ted Cruz secured that victory. Let's put this up one more time just to give you a sense of what's going on. Ted Cruz taking it over him. Now the concession speech coming from Colin Allred there in Texas. Let's listen in to him and what he has to say here on Live Now from Fox.
It's becoming rarer and rarer. I was inspired to run partly because of what I saw on January 6th. What happened when people lie about a free and fair election because they weren't happy with the results. I said then, and I'll say it now, you can't just be a patriot when your side wins. So tonight, we didn't win, but we will continue to be patriots. Isn't that right? I want to thank every single Texan, every single American who got involved in this race, but especially the folks who knocked on doors, who made phone calls, who gave whatever they could to this campaign. You know, I come from a family where we didn't have a lot of money. And so I know what it means when somebody sends in $5 or $10. It's an act of hope, and I appreciate them. And I really especially want to thank all the incredibly brave Texas women who've come forward and told their stories. Amanda Zarowski, Kate Cox, Lauren Miller, Dr. Austin Denard, Taylor Edwards, I could keep going. There are so many brave Texas women who've told their stories. And Allie and I will never forget them, and we will never stop fighting to overturn this abortion ban here in Texas. I carry 3 little rocks with me.